So there's only 6 people here. There's not much people in the house this morning. Hope you guys are well. Welcome to the last and final day of the 63rd Annual IPM Convention and Exhibition at this beautiful Sun City. You guys enjoyed the venue? You've enjoyed the venue? So we're running some polls. Which one is live? Let's just, can we put it up quickly? And there's an IPM survey which will be on Facebook. Please click on the link and quickly do that survey for us. It's very, very important that you do that. Let's just see which poll is live. And you guys know the Slido rules. Are you guys all connected to conference at Sun? Connect for us now. We're going to run a little poll. So here's the first poll. So after last night's bash, how are you feeling this morning? Let's just see. Great, ready to go, which is a lie, by the way. Fearless, I'm still waking up. I think I'm still waking up should have been 60%. Can we be honest about this poll quickly just for 2 seconds? Let's see if the poll changes. Everybody logged in? Let's have a look. Let's see if something changes here. 60, 40, 20. Let's see if there's a change in the poll. Aha. I'm still waking up is going lower. This is a lie. Anyway, let's watch the poll. What is the other poll that's running as well? Just pop that one up for me. How did you rate the gala dinner? Amazing, 53. Needs improvement, 40%. Unforgettable, 20%. What a bash, 7%. Let's keep running those polls. They will change as the day goes by. Is there another poll? How did you rate the band last night? Entertaining, 72. Fun and engaging, 32. Could have been better, 21. My feet is still sore. We should ask, my feet is still sore of the after party. That should be the poll we should have run, but it's okay. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll run those polls. We'll keep running them. And then also there is rate the speaker, rate the topic, which will go live when the speaker comes onto the stage. So we've got a few very, very important speakers up here, but let me just do a quick recap of yesterday. So yesterday was extremely fun and engaging. I think the most important thing we've learned of yesterday of the speaker was that males need more water. Because I brought the speaker a bottle of water. And for those who have taken careful attention, was that we need more water. And there's only a few people laughing, and I don't know why men is not doing a big sigh this morning. But that was the fun and engaging thing yesterday, is that we need to understand our brain and how it works. The fast and the slow side. And we've had a great evening last night with great awards, excellence awards. There are some winners sitting here this morning. There are also, just to recap on some of the after-party venues that I've visited, because I've been to 3 after-party venues, I think, or 2 after-party venues. And I see that those people are here this morning. And those I haven't seen in the after-party venues is not here. So there's a problem. So we need to work on our after-partying to get the plenary full on the 3rd day. It is my great pleasure to bring up the next speaker that will be doing the topic, Gaining Power and Influence at Work to Get Things Done. I've been chatting to this speaker for a few minutes this morning to find insight on his topic and what he does. And this is going to be mind-blowing. I would love you to engage. We're going to do a poll as well. I think it's probably about 7 or 8 questions we'll be handling on the poll. We'd love you to engage on the poll, so get connected onto Slido this morning. Right, so our speaker is an associate professor of real estate with over 19 years higher education experience in Sweden, the United Emirates, South Africa, and Spain. He also has over 13 years experience organizing and managing curriculum redesign, quality control for regular degrees, and executive courses in real estate. He was responsible for the redesign and relaunch of the BSc, postgraduate diploma, and MSc programs in real estate at Wits University, and these programs have since been reviewed by different academics, from property valuer professions, They were also accepted by the Institute of Real Estate Management in the USA, resulting in the largest increase in CPMs and the first chapter in South Africa. SA had only 3 CPMs prior to that. His work on program development, teaching and research supervision have been published in the Journal of European Real Estate Research, Journal of Real Estate Literature, International Journal of Learning and Change, and the International Journal of Strategic Property Management. He has also won 2 Teaching Excellence Awards in both Sweden and South Africa. I would love for you, the audience and delegates, to put your hands together for our speaker from the Wits School of Construction, Economics and Management, speaking on gaining power and influence at work to get things done, Professor Samuel Asasu.
Okay. So thank you for inviting me here. This is my first public speaking activity since I arrived back in the country 3 weeks ago. I've been gone for about 12 months in Spain, and I'm basically just trying to settle back in. As he indicated, we're running a poll, and I think it would be good if you can probably check out, is it live already? Yeah? It would be good if you can check that poll on how you navigate power and influence in the workplace before I do my presentation. If you can do that quickly for me, that would really be good so we can see where you are. So the first question is, I always put forth more effort and take more initiative than expected in my work. Yes or no? Anybody with access to those polls? And the second question is, I'm continually upgrading my skills and knowledge. Well, evidently, yes. That's why you're here, right? Okay. That was a quick response. I strongly support organizational ceremonial events and activities. Evenly split. I form a broad network of relationships with people throughout the organization at all levels. Okay. So there are no antisocials in the house. Yep. Okay. All right. All right. Okay. Good. All right. So we're back to the beginning. Okay. Good. Thank you for doing that. We'll talk about what all of this means in the next 45 minutes. So can we have the slides, please? Great. So my first question is, how many of you dislike office politics? All right. How many of you like office politics? Thank you. How many people like politics in the workplace? Nobody. And a few of you dislike it. Okay. But have you noticed that whether you dislike office politics or not, it's happening? And usually if you don't participate, then it means it's going to happen at your expense. In other words, if you're not on agenda, you're on the menu. So what does that mean? It means that you really don't have the option of not taking part in office politics. It's not in your interest. Especially if the reason most of us dislike office politics is because we think those who do it engage in influence peddling that advances their individual agenda at the expense of the common good. Is that correct? That is the reason most of us dislike it. At the same time, we feel disempowered because since we're not office politicians, we might have the best ideas, but many of these ideas don't materialize because we're not sufficiently political. Can you see where I'm going with this? In other words, if you have the best ideas and you want to see those ideas happen, then it makes sense to figure out how to gain power and influence in the workplace in order to get things done. So in the next 45 minutes, I'll quickly run through some ideas on how to be the right type of office politician. Because like I said, you really don't have the option of being neutral. You really don't have the option of sitting on the fence. It's happening as we speak. And so if you don't participate to influence things in the right direction, then you only have yourself to blame if things don't go as expected. So the correct approach is to figure out, how can I become sufficiently savvy with the use of power and influence in the workplace in order to protect the common good? So let's get started. So what I'm going to leave you with after 45 minutes is some ideas of how to enhance the power due to your person and the position you hold, how to translate this power to influence to get exceptional work done, and how to deal with the bad guys at work. How many of you have bad guys at work? We know, right? Exactly. And usually we feel as though we're helpless. We're not. This has a bad reputation, doesn't it? When we say somebody's power hungry, it's not a compliment, is it? Usually not. But we also admire powerful people, don't we? Well, just for the avoidance of doubt, let's define it. Power is the capacity to influence other people's behavior. And believe it or not, the effective use of power and politics is a critical managerial skill. Look, one of the things that is changing in our workplaces today is younger people with very high qualifications are joining us. They have all kinds of brilliant new ideas from the university, and they get to work only to realize none of those ideas will materialize, because what people forgot to tell them in school was that you might have the best ideas, but if you don't have sufficient political skills, those ideas will be stillborn. In our particular context, it is even worse when you're the first in your family to go to college. There's no mom and dads at home to teach you how to navigate the workplace. So if you're going to hang out with kids from more affluent backgrounds, you already start at a disadvantage. And so you might find that your technical skills are only able to get you as far as middle management. Beyond that, you're not rising because you don't have political skills. And it might interest you also to know that at the higher levels of the organization, technical competence is not as important as your political skills, your ability to lead teams, manage people, influence things. That's what bosses do. So if you want to become a boss, this is a critical skill. Managers' power comes from influencing people to get things done and requires that you have political clout in the workplace. So, as I said in the beginning, we don't have an option. We need to know how to do the politics of the workplace. So, in popular speak and in a lot of literature, you would find these negative views of power, which is why most of us would rather not have anything to do with it. Correct? Yeah. So a lot of us, or a number of you who said you don't like office politics, this is usually the reason why you don't like it, right? Your wife is calling. But let's take a positive view. I would like to argue that powerful people can get good things done. Power in the hands of the right people can lead to a lot of good. It is the means through which great managers get things done. And the reason many people are unhappy in their workplaces is precisely because they don't have power. How many of you feel disempowered in the workplace? You feel you have good ideas, but those ideas never go far. Show by hand. Your bosses are not here, they're not going to see it. Now, a lot of us are unhappy at work because we can't get good things done. Or some days, you know the funny stuff that happens? You go to a meeting, you raise an idea, and everybody says, it's not going to work. 3 weeks later, in the same meeting, another person raises the exact same point. And you're like, what a great idea. And you're sitting there thinking, but I said this 3 weeks ago, and everybody said it wasn't going to work. Sounds familiar? Maybe it was a woman who initiated the idea and they said it wasn't going to be good. A guy says the same thing 3 weeks later, and everybody's like, what a brilliant idea, and you're like, right? And when that happens, how do you feel? Disempowered, ineffective, demotivated. So what do powerful people do, especially powerful bosses? What are they able to do at the workplace? They can get you out of jail when you're in trouble at the workplace, right? They can get you out of trouble. Powerful managers can get you out of trouble. They might get you a coveted position, usually in the form of a promotion, right? Or a very rewarding assignment. Powerful managers can do that, can't they? Sometimes they say there is no budget for certain things, but powerful managers find the extra money out of nowhere. Correct? Extra budgetary expenses. Magically, money appears when everybody's been told there is no money. Correct? And you wonder how they do it. When you go to meetings, their items are on the agenda. Yours will not be. Yep. And they always have contacts with the top decision makers, the movers and the shakers. They know them. They play golf with them. They meet them at church, in all kinds of social activity. They're always going to lunch together. You're always outside those groups yourself. And when stuff is about to happen, they're the first to know. So, as you can see, it makes a difference to be a powerful manager or to be a powerful worker. Because look at all the things you can do if you had power. This is why I argue you don't have a choice. Because if you don't have power, you're going to be on the outside looking in. But at the same time, we have to agree that the abuse of power can derail promising careers. Okay? The abuse of power can derail promising careers. Some people are like shooting stars. They rise very quickly and they flame out, right? What makes them do that? What happens? What causes that? Insensitivity. Speaking rashly, not taking into account other people's feelings. Some people are cold or aloof, totally unconcerned about what happens to people in their team. Betraying trust. There are some people who will sell you for 30 pieces of silver at the drop of a hat. Or overly ambitious. They politicize everything. There are days when you just have to be a human being. Not everything has to be done out of political calculation, but some of these people, the politics is a 24-hour blood sport. Or they can't delegate, they can't build teams. Or they're too dependent on others. Look, two groups of people were observed over time. They all had the same education, same training, and then they followed them over time. They found out that some people had risen through the organization, whereas some people had gotten stuck. And they wanted to know, what is it that made these people go through the organization, through middle management into senior positions, and why have these people's careers failed? These were some of the things they found. That even though they may have been technically competent, these types of behaviors derail their careers. So, as you can see, power can be a stepping stone or a stumbling block. Now, when you abuse power, you rub a lot of people the wrong way. They don't like you. You might still be the boss, but you make a lot of people unhappy. As a matter of fact, one of the leading causes of stress in the workplace is abusive bosses. Many of us are here. We're ineffective because we have no power. The next 30 minutes of discussion is about how do we leave you here, feeling empowered at peak performance. Right? Everything I'm about to say after this is about how do I keep you on this part of the curve. Highly empowered so you can get things done. Okay, that's what the discussion is about. So what makes you personally powerful? Recognize these guys. You recognize them. This is Colin Powell, African-American of Jamaican extraction. This is Norman Schwarzkopf. Those are the two generals in the first Gulf War. And he was the first African-American to become the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. What makes you personally powerful? What makes you a powerful person at work? Expertise, personal attraction, effort, legitimacy. Can I unpack them for you? first thing that makes you powerful is know the job. Okay? Know the job. The microphone is misbehaving. Don't worry about it. We're going to get through it. Can you hear me from the back? No? Oh. Now we're in trouble then. Can you hear me now?
Testing 1, 2.
Okay. Yeah, maybe
It's
we
the
should do that.
microphone, that's the problem. It's not the
Yeah.
stand, so I'll give you this one.
Sure. Can you hear me? Great. Expertise. The first thing is know the job. Work-related knowledge. Usually either from going to a university, taking a degree, taking a course, or self-directed learning. Now, a lot of people think, oh, I don't have a degree, so I'm not able to do a lot in the organization. And I tell them, look, my older brother who paid for my education in Europe has never got a college degree. Today, he owns 7 McDonald's franchises in Paris. He started working in McDonald's in Paris as a crewman, cleaning the floor and flipping burgers. When he resigned, he was director of operations of McDonald's France. Today, he owns 7 of those franchises in Paris. How did he do it? Self-directed learning. And he doesn't have a college degree. He paid for my college education. And part of the reason he's one of the best franchisees I've ever met is because he started as a crewman. He was cleaning the floor, flipping the burgers. He knows that business inside out. Your first step in being a powerful person is know the job. Expertise is a great equalizer. If you develop expertise, you have some level of power compared to others. The only thing you need to guard against, though, is that since knowledge is changing rapidly, you need to keep updating that knowledge, otherwise you become holed up in an area that you can't get out of. So expertise is necessary, but it's not sufficient. And expertise that is not constantly updated can become a rabbit hole you can't easily get out of. But expertise is a basic first step on the road to becoming a powerful person. Recognize many of these people, for better, for worse. Part of the reason many of these people are powerful is because they are attractive. People find them attractive for a variety of reasons. The starting point is that most of them are charismatic people. They have this personal magnetism that draws people to them. But many of them are also people who are attractive because we like the way they behave. They're agreeable. And some of them are powerful. The cherry on the cake is their physical characteristics, and by that I don't mean they're the most attractive, physically looking people, but at least they put up a decent appearance. I'm not asking everybody to go and do plastic surgery. No, don't do that. But you notice when you're lost and you want to ask for directions, who do you talk to? The scruffy looking guy in the corner, or the guy probably dressed in a suit and a tie looking like he's going to work? It matters, right? You might even prefer to talk to the guy wearing glasses. Correct? Looks matter. Does it make sense? Yeah, there's no question about it. Looks matter. So powerful people make time to look attractive. So in terms of behavior, who are the kinds of people we tend to like at work? People who are open, honest, are loyal to their friends. Correct? People who are emotional accessible. If you ask him, how are you? You're going to get an honest answer. And if you ask them, you don't look good today, you look a little down, what's going on? They will tell you honestly what's going on. They're emotional accessible. They are positive in an unconditional way. They even sacrifice for you when you need it. And they're sympathetic, they're empathetic. I do remember on one occasion, one of my colleagues lost her mother. And we went to the boss during the funeral and asked, can we buy some flowers to go give her at the funeral? And you know what she told me? If we buy her flowers, somebody else will come and ask for one. And I thought, people's mothers are not dying every day. That was the most outrageous statement I ever got out of a boss. No sympathy, no empathy for the fact that one of our colleagues is grieving. We don't like those people doing. Definitely not. And the last one I put in bold. Why? Life works on reciprocity. You want to have good friends, you have to be a good friend. If you're not prepared to engage in the social exchanges necessary to sustain a relationship, if you only want to be at the receiving end of people's favors, people quickly drop you as a friend. So who are the people we tend to like? People who exhibit these characteristics, and these people, by the same token, are powerful people. The next source of personal power is effort. Doing whatever it takes to get the job done. So, at my place of work, there's a group of people who complain that some of us have relationships with certain organizations and people in town, and they think those relationships should have been with the university instead. So I asked them, okay, how many of you are willing to get in your car, drive over 500 kilometers to Durban, go to a local high school, and talk to kids about careers in property, and not get paid? No hands go up. And I was like, okay, so explain to me how those relationships are supposed to work for you. Powerful people do whatever it takes to get the job done, even if it's not going to be rewarded or recognized. Effort. These people who are able to do whatever it takes are always the boss's favorite, typically, because you will never hear them say, it's not my job. And of course, there is a link between this and expertise. The more expertise you have, the more these efforts make a difference. And it's usually viewed as a sign of commitment and dedication. My advice to people has always been, before you become a boss, you need to already start behaving like one. What do bosses do? Typically, they hang around there after everybody else is gone. They do whatever it takes to get the job done. So if you want to be promoted, start behaving like the boss now. Do whatever it takes to get the job done. Because you know what? There is no switch you're going to flip when you become the boss. Either you're that kind of person now, or you never will be when you become a boss. If you are pathetic now and lazy, you will be apathetic and lazy as a boss. Excellence is a habit. Legitimacy makes you personally powerful. There is a book by Harvard University called The First 90 Days. It's about your first 3 months on a new job. One of the things that book advises is that before you join an organization, interview a previous employee interview probably a client, interview the current boss, and find out what the organization is about, so that by the time you join, you understand the hows and the whys of the organization. Why? Because that allows you to direct your efforts towards addressing why this organization does business the way they do, and that's one of the easiest ways to become powerful. You know who they are as an organization, why they do things the way they do, and you align yourself. So, look, I'm West African. I went to school in Northern Europe. One of the first things I had to do in this country was go to Apartheid Museum and spend 3 days there, reading all those things. I needed to understand what made this country what it is today. That's how we understood property is one of the most political assets in this country, which meant that running a property program is not just running another degree, it's also a way of addressing the wrongs of the past. Legitimacy. That's how come I'm able to sit in Spain on sabbatical, and I'm able to raise just under R1 million to pay for a group of kids to write an international professional exam in the US. Legitimacy. Understanding the hows and the whys of an organization allows you to direct your effort and gives you a lot of power. So, all of that just makes you a powerful person. But what about the position you hold? What opportunities are embedded in the position? Now, a lot of people think unless you're the boss, you have no power. Hey, tell me, how many of you know in your organization today, the most powerful person is not the boss, but the admin lady? Right? What makes the admin ladies powerful? Let's unpack those. Because they have position power. There are opportunities embedded in being the head of admin that makes them more powerful than the boss. Don't trust those ladies if you want to live, right? Otherwise, they're coming for you. One of the things that makes them powerful is that they have access to information, right? They have access to information. They've been in the organization for so long, they know who's where, they are part of so many disparate networks that anything you need, you just have to ask them, they'll tell you, call this person, get this number, right? At the same time, because they belong to these different networks, they know who in this network needs to meet this person in that other network and serve as bridges, linking people in different networks. That is one of the things that makes them very powerful. They close these structural holes in the different networks. So they will tell you, there's this guy in that department who has what you need. Go and talk to him. Here's his phone number. Those admin ladies do that often, don't they? And if you piss them off, they're not going to tell you. Right? So, one of the things you do is that you need to be part of different networks. And the way to become powerful in those networks is that you need to have the habit of connecting people to opportunity. That business of connecting people to opportunity, getting people to have access to what they need, sometimes before they realize they need it, is the way to make your position powerful. So I've told people, look, you can make me the cleaner in the building. Give me 2 years. Someone will want to be the cleaner because it depends on how I do the cleaning job. Well, guess what? If you're the cleaner, you're going in and out of everybody's office and making small talk, right? Before you know it, you know pretty much everybody in the building. So even though you might be the cleaner, you have a lot of inside information that you can actually use to link people together. Suddenly, the cleaning is not such a disempowered position. Have you noticed? It's about how central it is. The cleaner is one of the most central people in the organization because he goes in and out of everybody's office. Flexibility. One of the first things you need to do to make your position powerful is negotiate flexibility. Make sure your boss or your employers give you some freedom to exercise judgment. One of the things I feel lucky about is that throughout my entire working life, I've never had a job description, which is good for me because I can carve the job into what I want it to be. But even if you do have a job description, it helps to negotiate some flexibility around it. Because if you have that flexibility, you can turn it into a more powerful position than it was originally meant to be. Now, it depends, though, on the life cycle of the position, whether it's an acting position or it's a permanent post, the reward structure, but also your personality. Proactive people are always trying to initiate change in their circumstance. The opposite is that you're just a victim that bad things happen to. So proactive people make their positions flexible and make it powerful. Visibility. So here's the difference between the fish and the hen. The fish lays thousands of eggs at a time at the bottom of the deep rivers and the ocean. Nobody notices. But those of you who grew up on farms know, when the hen lays one egg, what happens? It goes around the neighborhood making a lot of noise. That's the value of advertising. Your good work will not speak for itself. You need to find ways to make your work visible. Hey, good products don't sell themselves. You need to market it. How will you know who I am and what I do unless I agree to come here? How would you find me sitting on beds? How would you know what office I occupy or what I do there unless I accept to do this? You need to find ways to make yourself visible. Interact with people. Some be like, oh, I'm only here to work. I'm not here to socialize. Really? Good luck to you. You need to be visible. Interact with everybody, from the security guard to the bosses. So I'm friends with these security guards in my university to the point where there are days when I'm going to the office and they tell me who's waiting outside my office. On one occasion, I parked in the disabled parking and they went to climb the car, and he was the one asked to climb the car. What happened? He phoned me and said, come and get your car out of here quickly. Visibility. Remember, you need to be interacting with everybody, from the security guard at gate to the bosses. Otherwise, they will clamp your car. Okay. And relevance. Remember the book I told you about, the first 90 days? Doing that type of initial interview before you enter the organization means you also understand the central objectives of the organization and you will direct your efforts. Look, I bought that book before I moved from Sweden to South Africa. I told myself, I'm going to pretend I haven't worked before. So I'm going to read this book and behave as if this was my first ever job. The university gives you a 3-year probation before they confirm you. I was promoted on the 2nd year mark. Why? Because before I landed in this country, I did those interviews, I understood the central objectives of the place. So when I got there, I lost no time in getting to work, in addressing those objectives. So on the 2nd year mark, I was promoted. I have a group of friends who are complaining about why all the senior academics are West African. And I'm like, get to work. Go get busy. You need to understand the objectives of the place. Waste no time in directing your efforts. Then you will be successful whether you're East African or West African or Northern European. But power is not enough. You need to find a way to turn power to influence. It's necessary but not sufficient. Influential people obviously have power, but not all powerful people are influential. Why? Because to be influential, you need to learn a few strategies. 3 of them. The first one is the power of the whip. Retribution. Look, sometimes you have to put your foot down. You know, there are these bosses who try to be nice. They don't get anything done. You can't always be nice. I tell my students, you need to let people know you can be crazy. Just don't be crazy every week. But people need to know you can crack down on them. Just don't do it every week. Sometimes there is the need for retribution. Do it because I said so. At home we do it that with our kids, don't we? Because after a while you realize you can't negotiate with these children always. They're like hostage takers. You can't. When you give them one concession, they come back and ask for more. So sometimes you put your foot down like, do it because I said so, right? Sometimes at work, you have to use the threat of sanctions to get people to do what they need to do. And then there are days when you have to bargain. Look, listen, if you do this for me, remember that laptop we discussed 3 weeks ago? I just might get it for you. Reciprocity sometimes allows you to get things done. And reason. So, how did I get 700,000 sitting in Madrid for a group of young black South Africans to take a professional certification in property management in the United States? Well, if your organization's goal is transformation of the property sector, then it makes sense to help these kids write these exams because they will become internationally certified professionals and no one will doubt their competence. There will be career progression in an industry. In 10 years, we can change the face of this industry. The use of reason. And guess what? He initially agreed to pay $300,000, and I was like, okay, good, listen, go talk to this fellow, because I'm not in Johannesburg right now. At the end of the meeting, he was like, no, I'll give you 700 instead. Reason. So these are the 3 ways you can turn your powerful position to influence. Sometimes you have to twist people's arms. Sometimes you have to make deals. And sometimes you have to reason with them. So the question is, when do you do which one? Well, you can't intimidate people if you're not in a relatively superior position, right? So when you're at the weaker end, you can't use the threat of force. Remember those 2 soldiers that I showed you, Colin Powell? There is something we call the Powell Doctrine. It says, don't use force frequently, but when you do, use overwhelming force. Make sure you leave nothing on the table. Yeah? Good. So, when do you use retribution? When there is power in the influencer's favor. But you have to know that when you do that, sometimes it can happen at the expense of commitment and quality, which is why you don't use intimidation often. Because what will happen is that if you scare people, they start doing the barest minimum. So if intimidation is your default position, what you actually do is to kill discretionary effort. People are afraid. So they only do the bare minimum to stay out of trouble. So you use this tactic very, very rarely. And when there are tight time constraints, there is no time to negotiate, and there are serious violations on the table, and there are very specific, unambiguous things you want people to do, and you know they're resisting. That's when you use this. Reciprocity is where there is mutual interdependence between the parties. Okay, I'm the boss. I provide you with certain resources to do the work, and I need you to help me support my agenda. I value your expertise, you value my access to resources, so we can bargain, right? And there is adequate time to negotiate the terms of the deal. And sometimes commitment to goals is not too critical and the needs are specific and short term. Then we can use reciprocity. So sometimes you have to cut deals in the workplace. Reason you use when there is time to reason. When I can appeal to your good angels to get things done the right way. When we can agree on common goals. So this fellow who gave me the money heads the transformation unit of a major property developer. Since transformation is a stated goal, I can play that angle. So we used to get money from one company, we got money from him this year, and we doubled the number of students who could write the exam. If your stated goal is transformation, then let's make it happen. Give me the money, I'll bring the Americans to run the exam. The results came in last night, but 9 of them failed, but we got about 32 passed. So we're boosting the number of international certified professionals because we can reason with them and get them money. And we do the job. And part of the reason I didn't tell you is that this guy, when I met him, he wanted to know if they could get interns from me. When I finished describing the program to him, he came and enrolled in the program himself. So now he's a grateful alumni, and I can blackmail him and get some money out of him. Everybody wins. Does it make sense? We have an ongoing positive relationship. So guess what? Next year, I'm going back for more. Now, this is one thing that we don't talk about often. Managing the boss. Most of us think the boss just needs to manage downwards. If you want to be successful in your career, you need to know how to manage upwards. How do you get your issues on the agenda? You need to learn how to go and sell issues to the boss. Usually it starts by understanding, who do my bosses report to? What is my boss's KPI? How can I help him to look good in front of his bosses? So when you're going to sell your project, explain to him how your project will make him look good in front of his own bosses. Of course he will agree. Does it make sense? This is a skill you need to develop. You need to understand your boss also has bosses. Just as you want to look good in front of your boss, he needs to look good in front of his bosses. And if you help him look good in front of his bosses, you have a lot of clout. Correct? Sounds obvious, doesn't it? And look, to tell the truth, if you want to get anywhere, you got to learn how to do this. So the last part of what I have to say is, how do you deal with bad guys? When somebody's trying to intimidate you, you need to push back. Do not give in to intimidation. Confront if you have to. There is another Harvard University book called Difficult Conversations, How to Discuss What Matters the Most. You need to read it. You need to master difficult conversations. You need to learn how to tell people off without using insulting words. Because the time will come when you're going to need it. Resist, especially when you're trying to bully. Because you know the thing about bullies, when they're done with it, they go to the next person. So one reason I tend to fight some people at work is not that because it's my business, because I've understood when they claim that guy, when they're done with him, they're coming for me next. So you need to go out fight for the weak man. But some people are manipulative at work. Imagine the guy who doesn't say hello, who never looks in your direction, starts smiling. It's not because they got the Holy Spirit. There is no conversion going on. They want something out of you. Don't fall for it. The guy who has never been nice to you suddenly offers you a gift. Hey. You think they got a conversion experience over Christmas? No. Be careful. Examine their intent. And if they are manipulating, confront them. Don't bargain. And some people use reason, but in very manipulative ways. You need to look at the adverse effects of what they want you to do. And by all means, defend your rights. Don't comply if it violates any rules or if it violates your conscience. Usually, here is a rough guide as to whether you're going in the right direction or not. If you make good decisions, you feel at peace afterwards. If you make bad decisions, usually you feel very troubled. When your antennas are correct, when you start having those signs something is not right, don't do it. So, this is a summary of everything I've just told you. As an individual, these are your sources of personal power. And those are your sources of personal position power. And if you combine the two, you're a very powerful individual in your own right and by virtue of the position you hold. You can then select the proper strategy to translate that power into influence to get things done. And as I said to you before, you don't have an option. If you're not on the agenda, you're going to the menu. Okay. So, what's the takeaway? Enhance your personal power by improving your expertise, your personal attraction. Dress properly for work. A lot of studies have shown that when we dress better, we actually perform better on the job. When we dress shabby, we perform very badly on the job. It's been proven. Dress properly. I don't mean wear designer clothes, but dress properly. Show respect to yourself, show respect to others, show respect to your position. People find you attractive and you're more effective that way. And make sure you understand the why, the how, and the why of the organization and align your efforts. Improve the centrality of your position. Carve out discretion in your job description. Make your work visible and make sure that you're aligned with the central objectives of the organization. Use those strategies when necessary and where appropriate. Make sure people don't bully you and have their way. And learn to sell issues to your superiors. So this is part of a course that I give to property students at the bachelor's and the master postgraduate diploma level to just basically round up their skills, because we recognize it's not enough to know property development or valuation. It's a business too. You're going to be leading yourself and leading others. So this is the 5th of 10 skills that I usually give as a course over at BITS. That's my email address in case you need more information. And thank you for listening.
Thank you, Doctor. Could you stay with me? I've got a few questions that's coming from the audience. Just watch that feedback. Right. Thank you guys for engaging. I'm going to be giving away prizes after this for the most engagement yesterday and today. So, when managing, this is from Matseleng Mueng, when managing a diverse team, how do you manage these individuals differently without being seen as using favoritism?
So the one thing about diversity is that so diversity can be a source of riches for the team, in the sense that with different ways of seeing things, with different ways in which we want to do things. But it can also be a source of conflict. that can paralyze the team. For diverse organizations, one of the most important things to do is to have an explicit conversation about who we are, what we value, and how that affects the way we want to work. So last week, my department had a 2-day session because we were all recruited from around the world and put in one school and asked to work. And we never had this explicit conversation. I was trained in Scandinavia. One of my colleagues was trained in two of them were trained in Singapore. 3 of them were trained in the UK. 4 of them were trained in the UK. Some of them came from the United States. Even though we're all African, the fact that we spent all these years on the road means that we came there with very different ideas how to do business. And the fatal flaw, as far as my boss was concerned, was that we never sat down to say, what does a university look like for you? How do you want to run business? That would have allowed us to put our thoughts on the table, to become aware of how everybody views the problems we have, and negotiate certain compromises. In diverse teams, a fundamental first step is to have an explicit conversation about the underlying values of the people who make up the team. If you don't have that conversation, then you have no opportunity to negotiate an explicit agreement on how you're going to proceed. And that can lead to extremely paralyzing conflict. So diversity is not just diversity of nationalities. In South Africa, you're quite distinct cultures, right? Because if you drive around a typical South African big city, people still live in their old neighborhoods. So when we meet at work, we don't meet at work as one country, we meet as relatively different cultures. And you cannot take it for granted that because you're South African, I'm South African, we have the same ideas about how we want to proceed. You need an explicit conversation. And as some of you may have experienced, in the absence of those explicit conversations, you get extremely paralyzing conflicts. So the starting point is understand, pull out everybody's values and norms of how they see reality and how that influences the way they want to do their work, and have explicit negotiations.
Next question from Brinton Spies. Research clearly indicates that people who are taller and better looking get the promotions.
Yes.
In fact, they are also paid more. What is your opinion about this?
Yes. No, those are some of the facts of life. They're not right. They're just the way they are. Look, I went to school in Europe, and I worked in Europe for 11 and a half years before I moved here. Being black is front and center. You know, at the passport control, we're the ones who get pulled out. They tell you it's random, but it's not. You always keep getting pulled out. How can that be random? Now, it also means, in many cases, you have to be twice as good to be considered an equal. In other words, as long as we're human, many of these biases exist. My personal reaction is recognize the bias, understand the effect the bias is having, and work with it. So for example, when I go to Europe, one of the things that I have to know is that you can't be average. So you have to be twice as good. So if you recognize height is not one of your strongest attributes, you need to find a way to compensate for it. Yeah? That's why short people tend to be super loud, right? They're compensating for something. But it's very important. You can compensate for some of these things. You can neutralize their effect. And you realize a lot of the things I was spelling out, if you put them into practice, you can cancel out the effects of some of these natural attributes that you don't have.
Next one, Shubeya, I don't know if I'm spelling the name correctly or saying it correctly. How do you continue striving to be relevant with an organization while people at leadership see you as nobody despite your stellar performance?
Ah, that's a very good question. When you're not getting acknowledgement from the bosses, yeah, it's extremely easy and tempting to throw in the towel. Now, uh, if you, so when you watch observant Jews pray, they put something on their forehead. Have you noticed? Okay. A little box with a text from the book of Deuteronomy. That is the Jewish person's way of reminding himself on a daily basis what matters. It's an explicit obedience to the command of God. But it is also his way of reminding himself what matters today. One way to dealing with those dysfunctional organizations and unappreciative bosses is you need to find a reason why what you do matters. If you don't have a reason why what you do matters, the only place you have for affirmation is the boss's acknowledgement. And when that doesn't come, it's extremely tempting to be demoralized. Find reasons why what you do matters. For me, what does that mean? Why does what I do matter? Why does it matter? So, there is a boy who was a gas station attendant in Ekurhuleni when I met him. He was attending my program. I did not know at the time he was a gas station attendant. The only thing I knew was that he was unemployed. And when the opportunity came, I placed him with an organization. Last year, he was chosen as one of the top 30 professionals of 30 years in property management in the world. That's why I do what I do, not because of the boss. So we can take somebody from a gas station and turn him into a world-class professional. The way you immunize yourself against those types of bosses, find reasons why what you do matters. So you don't need the boss.
Thank you, Professor Samalazasu, for that. And just a big thank you from the board and management of IPM. We have a gift for you. You do accept gifts here, right?
Present.
Well, there we go. Thank you very much. A round of applause for Professor. Thank you. Thank you. Yesterday we had a talk from Malini Ramsamy which did the talk on unconscious bias. You guys will see that there is a little pamphlet dropped in front of you. They're doing an early bird special on the topic and objective, which you'll see. These workshops is the 5th and the 6th of November, Fire and Ice Johannesburg, Fire and Ice Pretoria. It's an early bird price of 6,200 Rand. Take that opportunity now. There is contact details on there for you guys to enjoy the early bird special on this particular topic from Malini Ramsamy. So please note also that the number of delegates is only 10 per workshop. So take special care of getting that early bird special there. I'm going to give a prize away this morning, and then I'm going to do a draw. And I think yesterday we had some cards dropped into a bowl at Sanlam. And it's a drone we'll be giving away this morning. If you guys want to get into places that you can't get into, you can use the drone to get into those spaces. Know where your husband is or know where your wife is. We'd like to give a little prize away this morning. This is from Wits. Unisa. From Unisa. It's a little goodie bag with all sorts of funny things in cups, bottles, USB pens, and a very funny thing. It looks like an egg, but you can find out. A little gift from Unisa. We want to give this away to the person who's received the most likes throughout the conference thus far for questions asked, relevant questions asked. I wonder, is Matsi here this morning? Matsi, are you here? There's Matsi. We had fun yesterday. I remember your face. We had some fun in the panel yesterday in Warriors 2, eh? You raised a really, really intricate question to the people there. Thank you very much for your relevant questions. A little goodie bag from Unisa. Thank you so much. I wonder, could Sanlam come up here and with the box and let's do the drone draw? Who'd love to win a drone? Who needs a drone? Who needs a drone? Only 3 people. Okay, we'll just concentrate on those 3. So those who never raised your hands and your card is drawn, you're not winning. All right? Who needs a drone? Oh, now more goes up. So just in case you're wondering why I've got my sneakers on, it's because I went to the wellness early this morning, but I was there before the wellness instructor, waited there for a while, and then left and went back to bed. So that's why I am left like this morning. Okay, are we ready for this? Well, for the sake of fair drawing, let's do it that way. Sorry again, just on the workshop with Franklin Covey with Malini. Just want to make a correction. The cost actually of that workshop is 6,200 rand, but the early bird special is 5,800 rand. So there's a huge discount there. So take advantage of that. All right. Can I read that? Or do you want to read it? Hey, this is the problem, you know, when it's actually a female winning a drone, we men get in trouble. The winner of the drone, I hope she's here, is Michelle Modise. Hi, does Michelle not know who Michelle is? She's not here. I thought you're showing to that lady there now. Is it a guy? Michelle. Okay, the email address. Okay, I want to reverse all my words back. Just rewind quickly. If a person wins a drone, yeah, well, I know a lot of French people, so their names are also Michelle. So this is at gpw.gov. So I'm going to take my words back again. All right, let's do another draw. Cello. Chobelo. Is Cello here? From the National Energy Regulator of South Africa. I think they need drones, eh? No, not here. Cello is not here. Right? Next one. If you can't give it away on this, at this time, then I think the MC will take it. Just bring it to me, buddy. Fran Ras de Jager, Department of Sport and Recreation. Ah! Department of Sports and Recreation. You do look fit, sir. Congratulations on winning a drone. And let it fly upon your department, eh? Let it fly upon your department so we can see if they're doing their job, eh? Thank you so much. Give them a round of applause. Thank you to Sanlam for the prize. We thank you. So our next speaker is going to be talking on the topic of HR analytics, the next big growth driver for HR professionals. He is an IoT leader with expertise in product lifecycle management, hardware, software, co-design, and systems design. He has extensive experience in the semiconductor and consumer electronics industry, as well as the tech product startup.
45 minutes, we've been talking about gaining power and influence in the workplace. Most people are very averse to politics in the workplace, but what I think and what my presentation argues for is that if we can gain power and use it wisely and know how to exercise influence, we can get a lot of good accomplished at the workplace. So what I took participants through was the ways in which they can become personally powerful and how that power can be translated into influence in order to get things done. We also discussed how they can neutralize the illegitimate use of influence in the workplace and all of the things that create conflict and make the workplace dysfunctional. One particular area in which we paid a lot of attention to is how to manage upwards. Most people don't realize it is their responsibility to learn to manage their bosses. They think it's only the boss's job to manage the subordinates. So we've also taken participants through how to manage the bosses and how to solve issues upwards by understanding their bosses' needs, their responsibilities to their bosses, and how to align our effort to make sure that the boss's agenda is fulfilled as a way of making sure that we also have our needs met.
First time, then I got an opportunity to visit the land where some of the very first experiments which were done by Mahatma Gandhi at a place not so far from here, at Tolstoy Farm, about setting up a community without discrimination and about non-violent behavior were done here. And a lot of those essentially were then taken back to India, and then we got our independence. So my first visit was all about connecting with this beautiful land and the history that we share together. And the second visit is all about learning. I am really grateful to IPM for having me here, especially Dr. Gule and Mr. Velile. I got to learn a lot from all the speakers here yesterday, and they were all inspiring. Now, coming to what I'm going to talk about today is some practical suggestions on how HR professionals can make sure that they are ready for the next decade of growth in this tech-dominated world. And the key thing that can help you become much more relevant and powerful in the future is data analytics. So I'm going to start with that. So a quick overview of how I have structured my talk. Essentially, there are three segments to what I'm going to talk about. The first one is about why analytics. What is it? How is it being used? Why is it important for HR professionals? The second one is a very profound idea that I want to leave all the leaders with here, is that HR professionals are the key to digital transformation within an organization. I think it's better to just hold in my hand. And it frees me up to move around. So, and the third and the final and the most important piece is upskilling of HR professionals in the field of analytics. Now, first up, what is analytics all about? And what is the difference between data and insights? Now, this is a real-world example, and this changed the world in some way. So, in the late 90s, some flight instructors in the US at a flight training school identified that there were a few learners, few wannabe pilots, who were only focusing on flying the plane. They were not actually paying attention about the takeoffs and the landings. Now, this raised some suspicion in those instructors. Typically, for a pilot, the takeoff and the landing are the most important and the most critical to learn. So they raised that concern with the investigative agencies, which did not do much about it. Turns out, those pilots or training pilots were the ones who actually flew those planes into the World Trade Center in the 2001. That changed the world, right? So this is what exactly is the difference between having a piece of data, which they already had, but then lacking the insight to act upon it in a timely manner. And that's the difference between life and death. So, what is analytics? Very, very simply put, analytics is about getting this disorganized stream of data, which today we have a lot of, then putting it together piece by piece and analyzing them, but ultimately leading to crystal clear decision making. This is what analytics is all about. And it's a universal field. It is relevant for every one of us in all walks of life, at our work, at our home. Now, we are generating as a society a huge number of data points every day, every minute. Within a minute, and this is outdated numbers, this is at least 2 years old, 1,389 Uber rides are booked. 2.4 million Google searches happen just in 1 minute. And 150 million emails are sent. And about 700,000 Facebook posts. This is old data, by the way, right? That's the amount of data that we are generating every minute. Now, what do we do with this data? Let's take few examples from different fields and see how analytics is being used to make use of this data. Let's talk about sports, which is a pretty interesting topic to start with, right? So, in the game of football, there are a lot of companies which collect immense amounts of data. In fact, 10 data points per second are collected for each of the 22 players playing on the field, which basically leads to 1.4 million data points, right, in one game. That's the amount of data that is captured. Now, how is that data used? A simple metric that people use is what percentage of the time was the ball in possession of which team, right? That's a simple statistic. And studies have shown that there is a direct correlation between how longer a team was in possession of the ball and whether they won or lost the game, especially in the last 1/3 of the time. Now, Manchester City went to 22 matches without scoring off a corner. And then they analyzed that all the corner and found that 75% of the goals came in from swinging corner shots, right? And then this led them to change the strategy, and after that, they went on to score 9 goals in the next 12 matches. So this is raw data about how people are scoring goals, then analyzing them in a systematic way, and then driving change in your strategy, which can help you lead to win games. Analytics in politics. There is a great documentary on Netflix. It's called The Great Hack, which is about Cambridge Analytica. That's obviously on the negative side of the use of analytics. But in 2000, the President Obama re-election campaigns, analytics was used by their team left, right, and center. And with the help of analytics, the President Obama team could identify potential contributors on email, volunteers, and voters. They could build models and create customized emailers based on the demographics and religious, cultural, political, professional beliefs of a person to appeal to him in their own language. And then they also used Facebook to influence, to help influencers reach out to their friends. In fact, even in the Indian parliamentary election in 2014, analytics and social media was used in a very big way. So it's already affecting our choices in some way, and essentially the leadership of the country actually is being chosen in some way based on analytics. Then there is analytics in the public domain. So the first example here is how the US Army forces used analytics, studied the past data on explosives that were placed on their route in Baghdad. They analyzed that data, and then they could predict a much safer route for their military convoys, leading to much lesser casualties. In case of hurricanes, so Hurricane Sandy in the US, the teams used analytics to map areas of vulnerability. They used analytics to map and then position supplies for medicines, other kinds of essential supplies, fuel. They could even fine-tune their relief efforts based on the intensity of the hurricane, where it would be more severe, so we need to stock more supplies. And then analytics in business. So the same hurricane meant very different for Walmart, right? So Walmart, based on statistics, ascertained that when hurricanes hit, the top two most common commodities which people ask for or want to stock are Pop-Tarts and beer. So they made sure that their inventories are aligned accordingly, so they don't miss out on any business when people can't move to faraway locations and buy those. And then there is stores. In this specific case, Starbucks. They use analytics to figure out what should be the best location to start a new store in such a manner that it generates good business but does not cannibalize some of the other stores which may be located nearby. And then there is this example of General Electric, which makes aircraft engines for supplying to various different airlines. They were seeing that some of the aircraft engines needed more unscheduled maintenance as compared to the others. While they were all made equal, but why were they behaving so differently in the field? Analytics helped them ascertain that it was actually the operating temperature of these engines or the aircrafts. So the flights which operate over the Middle East and the China, those were the engines which would need more unscheduled maintenance. And the simple fix for this problem was to just wash them more often. Now the simple fix led to 7 million worth of airline fuel reduction per customer, per airline per annum. So suffice it to say that analytics is being used in our modern world left, right, and center. Even when you open your Netflix account, which specific title would be shown to you out of the thousands available to them is based on your behavior. It's based on your choices, your likes and dislikes. And there's a very active analytics engine which works behind the scenes to get that to you. All the media companies are fighting for your attention. When you open Facebook, there is tons of information available in the Facebook database, but which one to show you, what is the most relevant? Analytics helps prioritize that information. So there is no dearth of examples on how analytics is being used. But then let's come to HR professionals. And let's see where HR professionals are today. Now, in 2005, there was a controversial article written in Fast Company. It said, why we hate HR. Okay? Don't hate me. Somebody wrote that article. Definitely was not me. But then in 2014, a management guru, Ramcharan, he analyzed that and tried to get behind the scenes on why this notion came out. And in 2014, he wrote an article in Harvard Business Review. He said that there is a perception in the people and the employees that HR is too busy. Or people may think that spending time with HR is essentially not seeming to help the employee. But what is the reason behind that? First up, there are a lot of high expectations from the HR professionals. So if you look at it, you have to manage different processes which run the company, but you also have to cater to the business needs of various departments, and then finally you have to deal with people issues, which are probably the most complex ones. Right? So there are a lot of high expectations from HR professionals. And the main question here to ask is an HR professional able to focus on the more important things? How is the time of an HR professional being spent? Is it being spent on mundane tasks, administrative activities, operational stuff, or is it being spent on the important stuff? Definitely we should move to a situation where it is being spent on the more important stuff, right? And when I talk about analytics for the HR professionals, I get a pushback, an initial pushback. The HR guys tell me that, look, Ashish, you come from technology, you are all about numbers and engineering. We deal with people. HR is not about numbers and statistics and charts. We are about emotions, right? We are about feelings. That is more important for us. And then I say, that look, but analytics can quantify, build behavior, build models, and then predict behavior of human beings. And then the HR person comes back to me and says, look, but decisions are based on life experiences. Okay. So now why analytics is important for an HR professional? Let me demonstrate that with a case study rather than just some slides. So let's take a case of hiring people, right? Now this is data from a fictitious company, and in the quarterly business review meeting, the HR professionals presented this chart and they said that in Q2, out of 100 people, about 80% of the people actually joined. So we made out offers to 100 people, 80% actually joined. So it's a pretty good number. But year to date, out of 500, 380 people have actually joined. So we have a success rate or joining factor of about 76%. Looks pretty good from an HR professional's point of view. Now let's see what some of the other leaders in the company had to say. So the customer delivery head disagreed. He said, these numbers are not good. We are losing out business because people are not joining. So you need to get your act together. Then the person from the technology head said that, look, for me, only one of the 5 people whom we made out the offers actually joined. So clearly there is something wrong here. You need to fix your act. And then they all said that, look, conventional wisdom says that you need to pay more to the employees so that they quickly join and we don't lose out precious time on the business. So everybody started basically egging on the HR department and HR professionals. Look, you need to enhance the salaries. Now, from here, there are 2 ways to act on this problem. One is, in a traditional sense, the leader which gets the biggest say, which has the biggest impact on the business, typically gets his say. So if it's a technology company, it will be the tech leader whose voice will be most important. If it's a more sales and marketing driven company, it will be the sales and the customer delivery heads. And if they say increase salaries, then you have to increase the salaries. But what should be done ideally in this case? So in the more evolved data-centric or data-aware companies, the main question that needs to be asked before we move on from here is, what would be the data that is needed to make this decision on whether to increase the salaries or not? Right. So the first point is, we should segregate these recruitment numbers by different job levels, by different job functions, before thinking about it and making any decisions. We don't have enough data. Then we should look at the compensation median for new hires. And then we should also look at the reasons why a person accepts or rejects an offer. Right? So let's work further on this case study. And let's say that we got a little bit of more amount of data. So earlier we were just looking at a recruitment rate of 76%, but now we are looking at 2 different categories. So what is the recruitment rate, success rate for freshers versus lateral hires? Right? And it turns out that the problem really is in the lateral hire case. It's not in the freshers. 90% of the offers made to freshers, they actually accept. So now we have narrowed down the problem. Right? But it still is not enough to say that we should just increase the salaries. We need to think further on this. Right? So let's essentially go one level deeper. Now let's break down how the recruitment fared for different types of employees, different levels of employees within the lateral hires. And you can see that we are pretty much okay near to the organizational average when it comes to individual contributor and the managerial levels. But the problem really lies with experienced individual contributor and the architect, right? So there the numbers are pretty low. In fact, for an architect, only 1 in 3 actually joins. So now we know pretty clearly that the problem really is at that level, and otherwise we are doing pretty well. So now once we have narrowed down the specific job role where we are facing these problems, then we can attack this problem in a much more clearer way. Because first now we will ask ourselves, what is a desired conversion percentage for that particular job role? It may be so that 75% or let's say 33% in this case may not be that bad. Maybe the people in that particular job role are very difficult to find. Maybe it's a new technology job role wherein you don't have people and you may need to hire and then train. And there may be other factors which govern whether people are joining or not. It could be work domain, it could be location of work, it could be the company's image of the kind of work, right? If I'm an electrical engineer, I would like to join Intel, right? And it may be so that there is a lot of competition or demand for that particular talent in the industry. For example, that's what is happening with data science. Data science professionals are more sought after in the industry. It's very difficult to get an experienced data science leaders. You will not find those with 15, 20 years of experience. Head of data science and analytics teams today, you will find 8 to 10 years experienced people. This field itself is now being much widely used. So essentially, now we can say that we need to consider all these different criteria before arriving at a salary decision, right? You need to look at compensation quartile analysis for joins and converts. You need to look at relative attrition levels for this particular job base as compared to our company, as compared to other companies. Maybe this job role is like that. And then we should also look at year-on-year increase in demand for these job roles, both inside and outside the organization. And only once we have done this, we will be able to say whether we should increase the salary of the person or not. Now, this equips the HR manager, the HR leader, the staffing manager with the power to negotiate with the business leaders at the decision table. This is what data and analytics equips you with. It helps you confront strong opinions and notions which you cannot fight with. It helps you confront power plays on the decision-making table because data doesn't lie. And that's the reason why I say data and analytics is very important for HR professionals. Now, the other thing that data analysis does is it helps you fight through common wisdoms or knowledges or assumptions. My boss always used to say, Ashish, assumption is the biggest cause of all screw-ups. Right? So this is a Google study result. You can Google this Google study and check for yourself. They did this study for new hires for their own organization, and they found that against common beliefs, brain teasers, which interviewers may ask in their interviews, are useless. Apart from making the interviewer feel that he is more knowledgeable, they actually don't help hire the right person at all. The other thing that came out of the study was grade point averages in the schools were absolutely not useful. They were not at all correlating with the performance of those people at workplace. Except for a small category of fresh grads, there was some correlation there. But for experienced professionals, their grade point averages did not correlate with their performance in the company. And that's because the ability to perform at a company, like Google in this case, is very different from the ability to perform at a school. Right? So people who succeed at school are finally trained for that environment. The question is, the person you're hiring, essentially what we are looking at then, in case of data and analytic information, his performance appraisals. Right? There's a lot of data that you already have. Now this data then needs to be analyzed to generate some metrics. Metrics which are important to you as an HR function and also to the business. Metrics like what are ultimate people costs? How much is the absenteeism? How much is the attrition? So on and so forth. Once you do that analysis and keep on doing that at a regular basis, you will start looking for patterns that will essentially give you insights. Patterns like, look, based on the past history of data, we have seen that professionals within certain age groups are performing better than the other. Or the people that we have hired from A school are way better than the people that we hired from B school. Right? And those insights then need to convert into actions. This is where the other responsibility of an HR professional comes into picture. It's not enough to just generate insights. You have to be able to influence the senior management. So you have to be able to tell a beautiful story backed by data. That will only lead to actions. Now, it's very important to consider, to understand why we need HR professionals to be very savvy about data analytics. See, the whole deal of data analytics is very closely linked to digital transformation. All the business examples that I gave you were directly contributing to the bottom line or the top line of the company because of their use of data analytics. And then we all talk about digital transformation, and data is the central to that. But is digital transformation being successful? Are our digital transformation efforts being successful in the modern day world? So George Westerman, who is the principal research scientist at MIT, he says, when digital transformation is done right, it's like a caterpillar turning into a butterfly. But when it's done wrong, all you have is a faster caterpillar. Right? So why does he use the word caterpillar? Because it's a transformation, it's a metamorphosis of your organization. And we already looked at that. Remember the hiring problem. The first approach to decide about salary increase is based on opinions. Like, yeah, give more money to people and they will join you. Either you can take that approach, or you can take a data and an analyzed approach where you generate insights and then take actions. So it's about driving a cultural change. It's not about a single decision-making aspect. It's not about improving your processes. It's about driving a cultural change in your organization, that instead of looking at opinions and past wisdom, we are going to look at data. We're going to look at insights derived from numbers and then act on them. And in the modern world, a lot of our conventional wisdom will not work. All of us know how difficult or challenging it is to deal with, motivate, and get productivity out of the millennials, right? That's a new challenge. The world is changing very fast. Our conventional wisdom will not help us in all the situations. So, digital transformation efforts worldwide are being a big failure. In 2018 itself, it was a $900 billion failure worldwide. Because we all feel that, we can use artificial intelligence, we will use machine learning, we will use the state-of-the-art sensors, and we will just transform our organization overnight by deploying so much of technology. But that really fails. And it's evident that it's failing. And why is it failing? Because while implementing on these strategies, we forget about our organizational culture. We forget about upskilling professionals. We forget about the human element of an organization. Your organization ultimately, at the core, is the set of people, is not the set of computers and sensors and hardware and AI. Right? Those are just tools. So this is a study from from NASSCOM, which is the National Association of Software Companies in India. It's an industry body. And lack of digital capabilities and skills is by far one of the most important factors which could hinder the growth of the Indian IT industry, is what the CEO survey tells us. And in fact, this is a McKinsey study, 2016 McKinsey study, which says that there is a very clear, direct, negative correlation or correlation between our cultural issues, our cultural impediments, and negative economic growth. So, aversion to risk, siloed mindset. This is my department, that is your department, our department should not talk to each other. Hardware should not talk to software, software should not talk to HR, HR should not talk to hiring. And then non-digital culture. This is the way I have been doing things for the past 20 years and I have been very successful. Why should I change? These are the most important cultural issues that we need to address. And who will help us do this? If we look upon the HR professionals to drive the cultural change in an organization. And that's why I always say, it's the HR department which meets everybody in the organization at all levels across different departments. You are, in my opinion, the custodian of the culture of the company. And if we want that culture to be transformed into a data-centric culture, we need the HR professionals to be upskilled first. So, as far as data transformation is concerned, these are the top 5 commandments we should live by. Data is a life skill, is not a technical skill. Data is a life skill. It's like language. Information will become your competitive advantage. We already looked at that case study. If you're powered with that information and insights, that will make you more competitive. Data-driven decision making cannot happen in silos. It has to be a collaborative, collective effort. And then training is not enough. Just getting people trained in data analytics is not enough. We need to upskill, we need to solve problems using analytics, and then we need to socialize within the organization. How I solve this problem using this simple analysis. And for 90% of the problems, you do not need artificial intelligence. We are already intelligent enough. All we need is data-centric mindset. We need to discard opinions, we need to look at data, we need to act. So, HR is the key to digital transformation. And that's because HR helps in driving a digital culture. And change management, so is very critical function. We saw so many inspiring leaders talk about how to do this better. All the other employees will need your help to manage this change, to move to digital. Skilling employees for digital needs to be a top priority for HR leaders. We need to hire the right talent. Nowadays, when you hire, we need to look for those data skills. And then we need strategic business support. Being able to cut across different silos of departments will only happen if we have strategic business support from the top management. Now, but is HR really walking the talk? Right? Ultimately, this is our vision. Right? We need to move from a traditional HR department to a digital HR department. Now, what does it mean? It means that there will be less manpower in the HR departments. We need to live with that reality. It's already happening. It means that HR professionals and help should be accessible from anywhere. It means reduced paperwork. It means cost-effective solutions. We cannot just assume that we can spend so many dollars on training. Everything has to be measured, quantified, much more granular level. We need to be time efficient. A lot of you work with companies which are spread across different geographies. People are working out of different time zones. You need transparency and you need quick process. Everybody needs answers today, actually yesterday now. So, but is HR walking the talk? Now, there's a very famous message that you hear when you board a flight, right? So I'm saying that we want HR professionals to lead this change and drive the transformation to data-based decision making. But let's be realistic. So we need to put your oxygen masks on first before helping the others. If there is one takeaway that you can take from this talk today is this, okay? Now, everybody is being impacted by job losses and HR professionals are no different. And why is that happening? And that's happening because there is a huge zone of job replacement. Digitization, automation, artificial intelligence is replacing a lot of jobs in this blue category. The jobs which will still remain very relevant are these two extremes. Very highly skilled jobs which require cognitive augmentation and support, right? Example, doctors. Those cannot be immediately replaced with AI. Or low-level skilled jobs which require a lot of dexterity, right? Example, construction workers, dexterity and precision. But everybody else, people who are bound to work within rules and procedures, but they require some judgment, but within the framework of rules and procedures. That category of jobs will be the worst hit. Is being worst hit. It's not a future statement. So this is a study which was jointly done by ADP and MIT. It focused the Asian economy, but I think it matters to all of us. So 70% of HR professionals fear job losses in the next 5 years. 70%. Another very important metric from this study was this last one. It's very important and interesting. How will the role of the HR function change with advancements in AI and robotics, right? So 66% said that HR will be tasked with managing overall productivity and therefore both man and machine. It's not just about managing people, but it's also about managing technology because you will be tasked with managing the overall productivity of the organization. And if machines are going to do some of the work, we need to be able to manage those machines also. So is there a career hope for HR professionals because of after this whole hype of automation? Yes, there is, and it's called HR analytics. That's what I cannot emphasize the importance of HR analytics more amongst this crowd. And there are many good leaders who have spoken before me about the importance of continuous learning. And one pioneer just said, once you stop learning, you start dying. Cannot be more true in today's world. Right, so we need to upskill. And Mr. Thiruvan from IAS here, he tells me, Ashish, at these conferences when people come, we all talk about problems. This is bad, that's going wrong. But do please talk about solutions also. Let's not only talk about problems, right? So that's the solution that I want to talk to you about. So IPM has been gracious enough to lead this effort and help us with proposing this HR analytics program, which is a learning program which aims to equip HR professionals with these data skills. So we want the HR professionals to become a pro at uncovering valuable HR insights and transform the way you work, and then help transform the organizations where you work. Now, who we are, I am essentially representing Jigsaw Academy. We have been doing, oops, this clicker keeps. So Jigsaw Academy, we have been doing data science and analytics training for different job roles for the past 8 years. We started doing this when analytics stream was very new. We trained a lot of people in banking and financial sector, but now we are seeing that everybody, people from banking, people from insurance, people from retail, people from manufacturing and mining, people from tertiary services, government agencies, everybody is upskilling their workforce on data skills. It needs to be tailored. Different job roles require a different type of data knowledge. A technical person who needs to write code so that you can get more and more data from different resources within the company needs a very different type of data skill than a data scientist who will do some analysis on it, than a marketing professional who will need to use marketing analytics to make sure more people come to his website, than an HR professional whose goal is probably to maybe predict in the next 6 months how many people will leave my company. So we all need data skills, but we all need them in a very different format. And we have been doing this for the past 8 years. And in South Africa, we are collaborating with the Institute of Accounting Sciences, which is a pioneering private institute, the first one to get psycho accreditation for CA courses. Now, what I want to talk about is this program that we are bringing here, but don't just take it as the program that we are promoting. Just take it as the skills that I want to suggest that you should pick up, no matter where you pick it up from. So our program essentially has two very clear key objectives. One is that we want to provide the HR professionals with a general understanding of how to leverage data effectively in a structured manner. And then second is, we want to expose them to various possibilities and use cases of how analytics can be used in the HR function. Now, there are three important pieces which I recommend you to ensure whichever learning method you take up. There are three pieces that you should learn about as HR professionals. The first one is data. What is the source of data? How do we get it? The second one is analysis. Right? How do we go about solving a problem using analysis, and which analysis technique to use? And third, and I cannot emphasize enough the importance of the third, which is storytelling. All of this data analytics is useless unless you can stand up in front of the senior management and make an effective presentation, tell an effective story using data. Hence, the third piece, which is very critical, is how do you present your solution which you have worked out? These are the three key ingredients for a successful learning program for an HR professional. So when it comes to data, essentially we want to understand what data is needed, how much data is available, is the available data sufficient, What is the quality of the data? If the data is missing, then are there any substitutes? Are there any technical, statistical measures that we can use to overcome that challenge? And then how this data needs to be prepared before it can be analyzed. The next step is analysis, right? And the key aspect that you want to learn about analytics is what are the different analytics techniques and which one you need to use for a specific problem, right? So define the specifics of the problem statement very clearly. For example, I want to predict how many people will leave a particular department in my company in the next 6 months based on the past 10 years of data that I have in hand. Right? That's a clear problem statement. Understand what kind of analysis is required. As I said, 80 to 90% of the times you don't need artificial intelligence in machine learning. We are intelligent enough. All you need is simple descriptive analytics. For example, that case study we spoke about, the hiring and the salary increase case study, there was no artificial intelligence used. It was just descriptive statistics which helped us make that decision. But some problems will need predictive modeling. For example, this prediction of how many people might leave my company, that's essentially what predictive analysis and modeling does. It helps us basically understand the concept of existing historical data analysis and then make calculated guesses, predictions about the future. And then finally is the story, right? So what is your story that you are pitching to your decision makers? How should it be told? Should it be told with numbers? Should it be told with graphs? Should it be told with the help of a video? How do you identify the hierarchy of the importance of different data points, right? And how do you leverage appropriate visualizations? So that's all which constitutes this part of storytelling. And then finally, this program brings everything together. You learned what data is, how do you analyze it, and how do you present it. But now let's put it up to some real life scenarios for an HR professional. So there are different case studies built into this program. For example, this keeps jumping on me. For example, workforce planning simulation. Can we build a simulation model to understand if an organization can manage employee expectations for promotion based on past data? Second, can we calculate the business value of retention of an employee? What if I rate all the employees in a company and then calculate a business?
It's an amazing privilege for me to be here to talk about my book, Lift As You Rise. Lift As You Rise, it's an African adage that needs no explanation. It is absolutely crystal clear and explicit. But what motivated the book is the fact that all of us that feel called upon to lead are indeed leaders. So you don't have to wait until you are in the C-suite or you have the title before you refer to yourself as a leader. Lift As You Rise simply says, take 2 steps on the corporate ladder of success, extend a hand and lift another human being. This is what our teachers in the 70s during the mass exodus in protest against Bantu education did when they left teaching, but because they genuinely cared about the education of an African child, they coined a phrase, each one, teach one. This is what we're imploring politicians to do, to say the best amongst us lead with a heart of a servant. That servant leadership is not a leader that has many servants. This is what we implore business, because business has a disproportionate voice, disproportionate resources, that they cannot continue to be an island of prosperity in a sea of poverty. That when business does well, society generally does well. Lift As You Rise says there is no exercise much more potent and useful to the heart than extending a hand down and lifting another human being. Nature is an amazing metaphor for business, because nothing that nature does it for itself, but it does it for everybody else's well-being and indeed enjoyment. That is why rivers don't drink their own water, That is why trees don't eat their own fruit. That is why the sun shines, but itself does not need the vitamin D, the light, or even the warmth. That is why flowers gives off the most amazing, wonderful fragrance, not because they themselves want to smell like Fontainebleau, but so that it is indeed for the enjoyment of others. So we are always aspiring for a higher form of everything that we do. If you are a manager, the higher form is leadership. If you are an important person, you want to move from being a person of importance to being a person of significance, where your impact can affect other human beings in a much more positive light. That is why when you do things only for yourself, we say you are selfish. When you do things for others, expecting something in return, we say you are unselfish. The higher form is selflessness. When you do things for others, expecting absolutely nothing in return. This is what Professor Stephen R. Covey, in his second book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People After Principle-Centered Leadership, has implored us to do, to say you can't really fully appreciate being independent until and unless you have been dependent on somebody else. And as soon as you become independent, then you realize that we are social animals in bone and marrow, designed to be with other human beings. Therefore, this notion of interdependence becomes absolutely critical. Therefore, for me, leadership, it really rests on 3 things. 1, it needs some sort of a compelling vision. Number 2, it needs courage. Lastly, it needs integrity. This is the one that we don't often speak about. Wholesomeness, having the courage of your own conviction to speak truth to power, irrespective of the consequences. Because leaders talk straight. They extend trust. They start first with the who, then the what. They find it very easy to palate, highlight, and celebrate others. They celebrate them publicly. But if there is a need to chastise, they do it in private. Therefore, we hope that we are going to take our rightful place as South Africa in the wider community of nations, rapidly globalizing world, at the time that indeed the whole country is troubled. And we hope that that is going to be premised first and foremost on trust, that we are going to invite conflict, because conflict is a good thing. It allows us to pick the best decision in the best interest of the entity, not just in the best interest of the people who are temporary occupants of the corridors of power. It allows us to then move to committing to action, even though the idea did not come from you in the first place. You put systems and processes for its attainment. Then it's about also bringing about this notion of holding each other and one another finally accountable. Because in bad companies, nobody holds anybody accountable. In good companies, the boss holds everybody else accountable. But in healthy organization, it is the duty of every single solitary one of the people in the organization to hold each other and one another finally accountable. If you did that, the logical outcome can only be peak performing teams and incredible results. It's been an absolute pleasure chatting to you. Thank you very much.
Let's not piss too many people off. So, fearless for me is without fear, without hatred.
From Anonymous, what systems and culture are required for the successful institutionalization of analytics?
I already spoke about some of that. I think we need to look at this as a life skill. That is the most important thing that we could do. Don't think of it as training a new skill. Don't think of it as a functional training. For example, a business manager may say, I need 50 people trained on Microsoft Excel by the end of this month because I'm running a project in the next 6 months. That's not how data science or analytics training should be done in an organization. You need to think about a transformational change. You need to think about a cultural change. You need to drive data-driven decision making. While making every decision at every level in an organization, people should ask themselves first, am I making this decision based on some data, or is it a pure opinion? So I think that's the most effective way to take this forward. Hence, plan for training every job level and every function in your organization for data analytics and not just siloed departments.
Question from Sam Tsima. What competence or capability does HR require to manage multiple data sources before we can even talk about having data?
I'm sorry, can you please repeat that?
What competence or capability does HR require to manage multiple data sources before we can even talk about having data?
So let me try to answer this in the context of this program that we're talking about. The entry level that we require for somebody to take up this program is just basic skills in Excel. So I don't think any special or superlative kind of technical skill is required for an HR professional to start doing some of these things, because we are not expecting the HR professionals to actually write algorithms which will do data analytics. There will already be a data science team in your organization. So just like 20 years ago, not every company had an IT department, but today it's very difficult for us to imagine a company without an IT department. Right? In the exact same manner, the same is happening for data science teams. All companies will have a data science team. I am not expecting my HR manager to write algorithms and do computer programming to churn out predictive models. No. I just want my HR manager to bring in all the experience and the process and the people aspects that they already are well aware, but have a mindset about using data-driven decision making. And then you can always get the number crunching work done by your data science team. You should be able to write requirements for them. You should be able to consume the reports generated by them. So for me, the only prerequisite is this attitude change that we should do data-driven decision making and not opinions-based.
Ashish, I have to stop the questions there. There's lots of questions. I will ask Nadeem to just make you admin on this, which means you can answer them in the Slido. But just have a look at the poll there. Have you studied anything related to HR analytics? There's 69 votes. The yes is 26% and the no. So the room has got a 74% no. Can we just check the other? Can you just? I'll do that. It's fine. Can you just do that? I'll do that. Can you just check, flip between the other polls so we can see the percentage? On the other poll we are running, 69 votes only. Well, there's a 70. Can we switch? Would you like to study HR analytics? Yeah, the room is high.
Oh, would be interesting to meet the people who said no. But also, I made a new friend here, Mrs. Waki here. That slide didn't come up. And she has done a study based on 6,000 respondents that 88% of HR professionals need upskilling. This is a South African study. 88% of the HR professionals need upskilling in data skills. So we are not too far off.
Okay, good. You've got some information. We'll make you admin and then you can answer the other questions as well for us. Just off your cell phone or your iPad. Ashish, thank you very much. A round of applause for our speaker, and then also IPM would like to give you a small gift to thank you for your time. I'll grab that, it's fine. For your time, there's a small gift for you. We hope you love gifts. For you, thank you so much. One more round of applause. Thank you so much. Our next speaker will be talking on transcending the status quo, the leader as activist. He is the Chief Learning Officer of ESCOM and has special interest in HR strategy consulting, leadership development, talent and succession management, organizational transformation, and change management. He has followed a career primarily in organizational effectiveness in the private sector where he held senior positions. His influence stretches beyond his organization, having consulted on leadership practices, on best practices to other state-owned entities, private companies, and African and BRICS utilities. He is passionate about giving back to the world of the human sciences and is involved in a number of professional associations, including Society for Industrial and Organizational Psychology of South Africa. He was awarded the winner of Global Forum Award for Outstanding Achievement in 2018, the prestigious IPM HR Director of the Year in 2014, SABPP Lifetime Achievement Award in 2014, and the CIOPSA Honorary Life Membership in 2012. An industrial psychologist by profession, he holds an MSc in occupational psychology at Nottingham and a PhD in industrial psychology in UJ. Please welcome to the stage Chief Learning Officer of Eskom Holdings SOC, Dr. Andrew Johnson.
Morning, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you very much for the opportunity to share with you a few thoughts around what I consider to be a critical topic if we were to talk about fearless leadership. How do we transcend the status quo? And it appears that that seems to be only within the context of having the leader as activists. So what I'd like to do is to just share with you a storyline of themes that I'd like to address today. And first of all, it's to say that, you know, when we talk about fearless leadership, it appears to be a very daunting theme against the context of formidable challenges. And I'd like to share some of those challenges with you. Secondly, a context that I believe is very well expressed in an overused concept called VUCA. And just recently I learned that in Zulu, VUCA means wake up. And I think it's a good way of saying maybe we should wake up to this chaos of this VUCA world. Leaving leaders with a formidable task, which I'll share with you, and requiring us then to speak of leadership in new ways. In particular, I believe leadership as action. This new type of leader, the courageous type, is the only one I believe that can challenge the status quo, because it is about transforming defensive routines and cultures as a primary task for leaders. They can't delegate it to anybody else. And secondly, the reason why it's necessary to speak of leadership as action, it's about how to tackle this task successfully. They will need to change their own particular mindsets as leaders. Therefore, they require a new mindset, for without the new thinking, no new action is possible. So that this new type of learning can emerge, learning that can help us identify and correct the error in our thinking and therefore our doing. Transforming our commonplace thinking about social virtues will then become very powerful tools in the hand of a leader, which I'll share with you. And in closing, manifesting truly the hallmark of what the activist leader is about. So, against this context of formidable challenges, including a widespread institutional decay that we see in organizations, resulting in silence amongst our people, fear and apathy, and therefore pointing for me to the inadequacy of the current fearful and therefore defensive leadership practices that we see, and compounded by this exponential change as well expressed in the disruption and the chaos of the fourth industrial revolution. I've just indicated some of those major trends from the point of view of digital disruption, amongst them probably the most important being artificial intelligence and what that's going to mean for us working in the people profession. I saw recently, for example, where the robot interviewed a particular person and not a person. We were only there to validate what the robot already did. And this is going to require of us very radical new thinking and doing. And for me, well expressed in this concept of VUCA, which is creating so much chaos for us. I'm not going to expound on this concept of VUCA, which I'm sure you've heard a lot about. Really, just to remind you, it is about how volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous the world has become, requiring us as leaders to seriously disrupt our identity. And I believe that disruption is going to be in three areas. First of all, we will have to ask ourselves, who am I as a leader? Secondly, how do I interact with others? Thirdly, what do I do when I step up into my leadership position? And this for me translates into three leadership challenges. It is first of all about how you lead yourself. And in that regard, maybe you should ask yourself the question, are you purposefully calm when the storm hits? Secondly, if you aspire to lead other people, maybe you should ask yourself, are you able to influence without your authority? And thirdly, in terms of leading your organization, you need to ask yourself, are you able to zoom in and out of the problem as you see it in the organization? In other words, it's the ability to have very sharp analytical thinking to see the individual challenges that you deal with in the organization, but also to put them together and say, all of these things together mean that the system is in trouble in this particular way, whatever the system is that you are talking about. I believe that this kind of world that we are talking about, that we see, is leading to a very formidable task, I believe, for leaders, and for me very well expressed in what Machiavelli said many, many years ago, somewhere in the 1700s. And he said, there's nothing more difficult to carry out, no more doubtful of success, no more dangerous to handle than to initiate a new order of things. For the reformer has enemies in all those who profit by the old order, and only lukewarm defenders in all those who would profit by the new order. This lukewarmness, arising partly from fear of their adversaries, who have the laws in their favor, and partly from the incredulity of humankind, who do not truly believe in anything new until they have had the actual experience of it. It almost says, is seeing believing, or is believing seeing? That's what that last sentence is talking about, because it says, unless we have an experience of something, we will not believe that it is so. But in order for you to step into a new experience, you must even the slightest bit of belief in order to expose yourself to the experience. And this is what this great task is about. Those who have profited from the old order will not be your friends, and those who might be very worried about how those who profited will see you in the new order will also not be your friend. You stand there as a leader and you'll have to ask yourself, what am I going to do? And this is going to require for us, colleagues, to cast leadership in very new terms.
At the IPM, and the theme for this year's convention was Fearless Leadership. Fearless leadership for me is without fear, without hatred. There could not be a better theme for this year's convention, because with the changing times and the world in constant turmoil, we all need to be fearless leaders to affect change. And the key topic that I was here to express my thoughts about was HR analytics as a key tool for HR managers to become fearless leaders. If you look at the world today, data and analytics is being used left, right, and center, from predicting and influencing political election decisions, to helping you view the next best movie at Netflix, to help you gain better access to healthcare. All sorts of fields are using analytics in a big way, and HR is no different. If you look at your function as an HR professional, you sit on a lot of data. You have data about the past employment history of an employee. You have data about their day-to-day performance. You have data about their attendance and timings they spent in the office. You may even be counting the number of emails they're sending in a day. Now, all of this data can be used to a great effect in doing things which earlier were difficult. For example, this data can be used to predict how many employees might leave your company in the next 6 months. Now, that could be a valuable insight because you can plan your workforce hiring in a certain way. This data can also help you bring out correlations between how you can choose which people to hire based on where they come from, because you have collected over the past several months and years a lot of data on how people are performing on the current job role. These are all critical HR functions and they all benefit from data. And the other aspect about data is that the entire organization needs to become data smart. We need to move from opinion-based decision making to data-driven decision making. And this can only happen if everybody in the organization thinks about data first and then opinions later. And as HR professionals, you're also the custodians of the culture of an organization. So until unless you are equipped with this power of data and analytics, you will not be able to affect that cultural change in an organization, which will make or break that organization in the coming future. So what are the key skills that as an HR professional you need to equip yourselves with? I think the key 3 skills as HR professionals you can take up in the field of data analytics is, 1 is about the data, 2nd is about analytics, and 3rd is about telling a story. So when I talk about data, you need to understand where this data comes from, how much data is enough. If you have missing data, how do you overcome that barrier? When it comes to analytics, you need to be able to look at a problem. First of all, define the problem accurately, then figure out which analytics technique would be best suited to solve that problem, and then carry out that analytics. And third, and one of the most important aspects is, you need to be able to stand up in front of your management, talk about the work that you have done, and influence decisions. Because without getting that buy-in from the senior management on whatever actions you propose, all of this data and analysis is not useful. So I would like to just leave you with this key thought from this favorite movie of mine called Kung Fu Panda. And Kung Fu Panda says that, his master Shifu, the mentor of Kung Fu Panda, says that if you only do what you have done before and never do something new, how will you become more than what you are? Hence, my fellow HR professionals, please make it a point to learn HR analytics. It will help you become much more powerful and fearless because you will be equipped with the power of logic, reasoning, data, and analysis, and it will help you gain much better buy-ins and bring you to the decision-making table with much greater power. Thank you very much.
We are more interested in working through the agenda of the meeting than the quality of the conversation that happened in the meeting. Or we massage the reports and our minutes so that we don't tell too negative a story, we just tone it down a little bit, and therefore make sure that we shield the negative information that people should know about. You will also find in such defensive cultures very much a view where alternative views are not being aired, and therefore the boss always just hear non-controversial kind of reports rather than what is the reality, and the prevalence of groupthink that you might be familiar with, forcing everybody to think in the same way. Hence, new people stepping into that environment find it incredibly difficult to bring new ideas because we have done it like this for the last 50 years. And therefore, people who bring new ideas don't feel comfortable enough to bring those ideas in. For the leader himself or herself, there's also going to be a requirement to unlearn some mindset trappings that are there. So for example, and it has to do with these recipes that we believe are proven, tested, and tried in the past, and they include where we believe we are invulnerable to outcomes of past successes. What that means is simply to say, because we were successful in the past achieving a particular goal, we believe Now that we see a similar thing facing us now, we will also be successful. And we simply take the recipe that we used to have in the past and we apply it to what essentially is a totally new problem. Also, we like to disconfirm any data that challenges anything that we so strongly believe in the organization, or we have to tone down if there's not consensus amongst us, because right is on our side, and we kind of suppress any expression of doubts and misgivings and any disturbing ideas, forcing everybody to think in exactly the same way. Now, the big issue around that is to say learning can only happen in a space of difference, not sameness. So the question would be for us, what are we as leaders prepared to do differently, dependent on a mindset shift? Now, Einstein says in this regard, the mind that created the problem is not the mind that will solve it. And I'll use the same concept later talking about paradigm, because this is going to require of us a very radical strategic jump that we have to make. I often quote this from the Native Americans as expressing how radical this jump need to be, that we have to make from where we are now to where we have to be. And the Native Americans say it is a bad strategy to jump over the Grand Canyon in 2 leaps. If you can't do it in 1 leap, you will fail. And that is what is required by this very radical change that we are talking about. So, what is potentially this ingredients of this new mindset that we are talking about, the mindset that is going to be required? Dweck speaks of it, Carol Dweck, she speaks of it as a growth mindset opposed to a fixed mindset. Because the fixed mindset is very much dependent on what I believe are my innate abilities and gifts that I have, and everything that happens around me is purely about that. I've got gifts that I've been born with this. I bring these gifts in to the organization, where a person with a growth mindset says, I do have talents, but I can develop them further through hard work, through good strategies, and through input from others. And it's simply making the point that nobody can achieve in life solely by yourself. Even though you want to believe so, I would very much say that that is delusional. Because somebody do help nurture and facilitate the growth that we then demonstrate in the end. So a growth mindset in terms of challenge is going to say, I embrace challenge. In terms of obstacles, I persist in the setbacks. I build resilience. I will not allow it to knock me down. I will stand firm. In terms of effort, I see effort, putting a lot of time and energy into it, as a way and a path towards my mastery. In terms of criticism, I welcome it. Do give me feedback about what do you see so that I can learn from it. And in terms of the success of others, it is finding inspiration in the success stories of others. What can I learn from other people? So this is the kind of growth mindset that is going to be necessary for us to be able to become this leader as activists in the organization. The only problem with this, colleagues, is a mindset, by me just telling you about it, is not going to happen by itself. And even though you might agree and say the insight sounds good, it's not going to happen for you, because guess what? As soon as you step out of this door, you are facing real life again, and what will happen is that all your old patterns and behaviors will be elicited. So by just telling, it's not going to shift the mindset. Something else is required in this regard, and it is to say that that mindset will require a very strong paradigm shift, because these are the trappings that will hold us back, first of all. So we need to recognize them. I already have it, and I always have. Secondly, a growth mindset is just about praising and rewarding effort. In other words, when we just massage each other's backs to say, oh, you have worked so hard, and the person is not able to show any result, that's not a growth mindset. A growth mindset says it is about the praise, but that needs us then to lead towards results for yourself and for the organization. And just by espousing a growth mindset, good things will happen. In other words, when I just think about it, it's a bit like people saying to us, just think positively and the positive will happen. Well, yeah, okay, but you have to work at it, because by just thinking it, it's not going to be sufficient to sustain the behavior to operate positively, or in this particular instance, to have this growth mindset. Hence, the first thing that is going to be necessary for us is to spend time on unlearning that which we know so well. Because I can tell you that which we know so well is what is determining our behavior right now. And you will continue to be stuck in doing, as Einstein says, the same thing over and over, and yet expect the fruit to come. Einstein also advises, as I've said earlier, the mind that created the problem is not going to solve it. Therefore, we can also say the paradigm that created the problem is not the one that will solve it. So, for example, when we talk about performance management in the organization, year after year, I hear, executive briefings and workshops and conversations around us trying to solve the problems that we see about performance management by still using the same thinking as we tried to deal with the problem last year. That is not going to help us. What is going to be required of us is to lift the veil of what blinds us in terms of our mindset. I'd like to share with you a quote from Daniel Goleman that you might know from Emotional Intelligence, but he wrote another more interesting book called Vital Lies, Simple Truths, The Psychology of Self-Deception. And in this book he says, the range of what we think and do is limited by what we fail to notice. And because we fail to notice that we fail to notice, there is little we can do to change until we notice how failing to notice shapes our thoughts and deeds. Here's the quote on your left-hand side. The range of what we think and do is limited by what we fail to notice. Now, why is it that we fail to notice things around us? It's purely based on how we have developed as human beings. As part of our survival, we have to select information, because the information that we have available to us are of such infinite quantities that our minds have to select and focus on what is necessary for us at that particular moment. So, for example, just to show you how selective your mind is, just as I say it, you will notice it. For a moment, you ignore the humming of the aircon in this room. Because why? You were trying to focus on what I have to say. So our mind pushed certain information out of our conscious space into the unconscious in order for us to deal with other things. So the first thing that Daniel Goleman says here is we are blinded very much through how we have learned to view the world through our perception, our five senses. And therefore, we can only see part of reality and not the sum total, to the extent that what we know about reality only represent 1%. 99% has to be discovered by us, and yet we act as if we know the 99. That is blindness, because we can never see the full reality. All we can do is to open our eyes to say there is more than what I can perceive with my five senses. He says the second thing is even more important and more difficult to come by, and that is the one that we actually have to master. And because we fail to notice that we fail to notice, the point he's trying to make is to say, not only are we blind, we are blind about our blindness. In other words, when we operate day to day in autopilot, we believe we are actually very rational. But here's the thing. We could very simply agree that the new normal is that we have to act abnormally. Society does that all the time. To the extent that the people perhaps we put in the mental hospitals are the sane ones, we are the insane ones sitting around here. All we have to do is to agree to it that insanity is actually the new sane for ourselves. So he's saying we need to bring our blindness into our awareness, just how limited it is in terms of what we perceive, in order for us then to break new grounds and say, what else is available? The sum total of reality is not just what I see, there's much more to be discovered out there. It's a bit like saying the truth exists irrespective of our opinions. We have to go and discover it. It's always there waiting for us to be discovered. Because this blindness, colleagues, this tacit blindness, leads to what Chris Argyris called skillful incompetence. And what he means by that is to say, we actually have developed very deep skills to do things badly. We are good at doing these things in an automatic way, in an effortless way, and it's totally unconscious. It's no longer in our conscious mind. And those skillful, incompetent practices that we persist with leads to organizations developing these defensive cultures which I spoke about earlier. So we are called to learning now to become a leader as activists in new ways, because then we also say that effective learning can be seen as action. Because I said to you earlier that effectiveness is defined as the extent to which you achieve your intended consequences. It is saying now we can begin to identify what exactly is the problem here. Why is there a mismatch between what I say as a leader and the actions that I demonstrate in the organization? More often than not, that is what we see. People say, for example, in organizations, our people are our biggest assets, and yet when we look at the practices in the organization, it seems to totally contradict it. So we can identify with this new learning to say, that is a mismatch between what you say and what you do. So that we can bring these two things together and say, how do we resolve it so that what you say and what you do is the same thing? You begin to walk the talk. And more importantly, this kind of learning is going to help us to dig into the beliefs that sits behind our behavior. Because this kind of stuff that we're talking about here, right at the bottom of that diagram, where you see governing values, mental model, those are our beliefs that we have, or our intention that sits behind the behavior, which is our action strategies, and that leads to consequences for us. But as I've said, we say our people, so we have a view there to say our people are our biggest asset, but we take actions where we speak disrespectfully to people, we treat people badly, we do all sort of things that seems to contradict what we say our people are our asset. And then we find our people are actually not so hot about the idea as you talking of them as your biggest asset. Now we can go and change the behavior of the person. So if a person is disrespectful, HR would take the person and put him on training, and will learn new behaviors. Talk to your people when you want to give negative feedback. Speak to people privately. Don't shout down the passage. etc. So we give all sort of skills to the person. He comes back into the workplace and he now demonstrates this behavior, and people are even surprised. How is it that Sam is now so different? He's this guy, when you greet him in the morning, he grunts. He doesn't say hello, you know. You know, you've seen some of those bosses. And by the way, that behavior that you have learned now is not going to be sustainable. Why? Because when that manager finds himself or herself under pressure, it's quite likely that all your old behaviors will be elicited, because they're automatic. They already sit in your head. You don't have to think about it consciously. They just come into your conscious mind and you do it. What is required of us is to do what is right there at the bottom, that double loop learning. We need to go behind the behavior of that particular manager and help him or her understand that the belief you have, simplistically stated, that if you believe that people need to be treated, you just believe people should be treated badly, then if we can't change your thinking about it in that way, your behavior over time will not sustainably shift. Because that particular belief will keep on coming back to help you think about how you behave in relation to other people. That stuff there, the mental models, your belief system, is very much the stuff, colleagues, that sits below the line of the iceberg. The beliefs, the values, the norms of people, and often we just simply deal with the stuff that sits above the line of the iceberg. So, going towards the end now, how can we perhaps think about taking very normal concepts that we consider to be good social virtues and take it out of this defensive space. Defensive means you are trying to protect the status quo, whereas productive ways of dealing is to say you want to shift away from that particular status quo. So let's take the virtue of help and support. Now we believe that in terms of help and support, it should be about approval, about praise, and making other people feel good about themselves. Whereas productive says, maybe I can help the person to confront the ideas, the stuff that sits in the belief system that holds you trapped in the way that you respond to your situation. Understand what are the assumptions that you make, what are the biases that you have, what are the fears that you have. So in helping and supporting the person, we actually are helping the person to break through the barrier that sits in the space of the beliefs. Secondly, respect for others. We could change it from defensive to productive by not confronting to helping people to say, actually you do have a deep sense of self-examination and reflection. Therefore, you can make choices about the things that sit in your head, which will determine what kind of behavior will show to others, and therefore not be disrespectful to people. So I'll challenge you, but I'll never make you feel as if I'm trying to break you down. That's a very different way of looking at it. And finally, it is also about strength. It's not you as a leader just wanting to win, and therefore see vulnerability as a weak side. You say, I will strongly advocate my position, but I also invite you to check what I'm saying to be true and valid or not. That's a very different way of thinking, because I'm saying I'm making myself vulnerable to say I don't know everything, and therefore I can learn from what you are saying to me. So strength is seen in a very different way. Honesty, tell people no lies, or making public what is going on in your mind about what you're thinking. Integrity, just stick to your principles and values, or stepping into a space to say, help me to inquire whether my principles and values and beliefs are still valid and that they still serve me as a leader, and secondly, it still serve my people and the organization that I'm in. I think in conclusion, colleagues, if we are able to rethink our mindset and step into the space to challenge our blindness and beliefs, and therefore to see how blind we are about our blindness, to then reconstruct how we see the social values or social virtues that we so often use in organization, we can then begin to say that this new leaders activists will look a little bit what Lao Tzu said 500 years before Christ. And Lao Tzu said, when the leader governs, the followers are hardly aware that she exists. The leader doesn't talk, she acts. When her work is done, the followers say, amazing, we did it all by ourselves. Thank you very much, colleagues.
Thank you, Dr. Andrew. Just a few questions from the audience. Tell me, you're not in any way responsible for the load shedding in Eskom.
I don't know
You know- Because quite funny enough, the questions that's come through is quite bizarre, and it's with regards to load shedding. I wonder, should we just field one of them? Would you guys allow me to just do one of them quickly? Seeing is believing and believing is seeing with the constant load shedding. Why is the public not seeing the new ideas your fearless HR leaders are talking of? Do you want to answer that?
I think one of the things that I think people often confuse is that there are people who speak about Eskom publicly and obviously present a public image. There are many people in Eskom who are very willing to make a critical assessment and reflection of what is happening in the organization. Unfortunately, that's not the voice that you will hear in public, because people do challenge the view that is internal to say, we should do it differently. And why are some of the leaders like that in Eskom? It's because when we take it back to, say, 2013, when Brian Damas was still CEO of Eskom, there was really an effort to try and say we need to think about our organization differently, and we did some very deep programs with those leaders how to think differently about it. Unfortunately, because of this very serious volatile leadership structure right at the top, we have not been able to implement that successfully, and that is the image that people see outside.
I think, Thomas, you just so we can laugh a little bit. On the laughter note, Dr. Johnson, I was holding my breath that there would be no load shedding whilst you're delivering your presentation.
Well, there isn't.
So we're good to go.
Not today, anyway.
We're going to make you admin so that you can see this on your smartphone, these questions, and you can field them in your own time. We are really pressed for time, and this is why I make friends with the audience when we're sitting in the bars and restaurants. I would like to ask the audience a massive, massive favor just to switch. But before I do that, I'd like to just thank you for your diligent time, and just a small gift from IPM to you to enjoy. Thank you so much, Doctor.
Thank you.
A round of applause to Dr. Johnson there. Ladies and gentlemen, I know that we are pushing over time, and I'm going to ask you diligently to bear with me. The speaker that we're going to bring up now, and I know we're not going to take a little break, but I'll promise you one just after this. He promises to be 25 minutes. It's Bonang Mohali. We are switching Dr. Puleng just around to finish off. He needs to catch a flight. If you have to quickly run out while he's talking just to grab a bun to eat, the food is still outside. But just to push through, and we take a break after this, and then we'll bring up Dr. Puleng, and then we'll finish off. Is that okay with the room? I'm asking you a little favor. You see, it's good to make friends, and it's good to buy some of them drinks. Like I bought a lot of people drinks last night at the bar, and my card is maxed, and so I thank you so much. Thank you so much. Give yourselves a hand for working with me this morning. Thank you, thank you. So our next speaker is the author and ex-CEO Business Leadership South Africa, PLSA. He ended and distinguished the term also as the Vice President Upstream and Chairman of Shell South Africa Limited at the end of June. You originally wanted to study as a medical doctor, I see, and has had a distinguished career at the helm and in leadership roles of several major South African and multinational companies, including Otis Elevators, South African Airways, Sanlam Limited, and Drake & Skull Integrated Facilities Management. He currently serves on the boards of Swiss Re Africa, Holland Insurance, Rand Merchant Bank, and Oakhurst Insurance. He has an impressive track record of building successful companies, delivering results, and making significant advances in transformation in the companies he has been involved in. He has been a vocal, courageous, and active proponent of transformation since the 1980s and played a leadership role in the Black Management Forum for over 33 years. He was conferred with an honorary professorship in marketing management by the University of Pretoria, where he serves on the advisory council. 2012, IPM CEO of the Year, he received the Presidential Award for his servanthood in South African industry and the economic empowerment of previously disadvantaged individuals in 2001. Ladies and gentlemen, to speak about Lift As You Rise, business leadership and personal journey that will only be 25 minutes, he promised me, Mr. Bonang Mohali.
25 minutes or less. I cannot compete with food and a break. So let me just give you a few sound bites out of respect. There's no doubt that this South Africa of Rolihlahla, Nelson Mandela's dreams, has lost its way somehow. Its potential is that big, but the actual much more below. Actually quite disappointing for most of us. First 15 years we thought we did well. Now we are in the throes of worrying about a potential downgrade by Moody's beyond and indeed below investment grade. If we were to be downgraded by Moody's, it means we are going to have a net outflow of almost 100 billion South African rands, because those asset managers and the investors do not have the mandate to invest in entities or countries that are below investment grade. When there's a net outflow, the South African Reserve Bank will be forced to increase rates to protect both the currency and indeed inflation. When they do that, the rate of borrowing goes up for government, for the SOEs and SOCs, and we have more than 700 of them. But also you and I start feeling it almost immediately, because we'll pay more for our cars and indeed for our bonds. But if you speak to a majority of Africans, they will tell you that probably in the last 5 years, we have been in a recession, not just the classical technical recession that is 2 consecutive quarters of a contraction. Our discretionary purchasing power and indeed disposable income is buying us less today compared to the same period last year. The thing that should really make us absolutely angry is the fact that all our problems and challenges have nothing to do with exogenous factors. The trade war between Trump and China, the Brexit of Boris Johnson in a few days' time, every single solitary one of our problems are self-harm, self-made, self-inflicted, cutting our nose to spite our face. And we are not even quantifying the cost of this lost opportunity. So if you consider that we were gifted with Rolihlahla Nelson Mandela on the 27th of April, 1994, and in 5 years, the size of the economy, GDP growth I'm talking about, increased 2.5-fold. And the trajectory was upwards and forwards. Handed over to Thabo Mbeki in a seamless transition the world has ever seen. Thabo Mbeki went on to give us 43 consecutive quarters of positive GDP growth. We were able to add 500,000 families into the middle class. The number of students in institutions of higher learning increased from 7 to 11%, in absolute numbers to 1.2 million. Imagine for a moment what could have happened if we had just continued on that trajectory, upwards and forwards. Had we done that, unemployment would be 16%, not approaching 30%. GDP growth would be 6%, not less than 1%, that we have experienced probably in the last 48 months. In average, last 10 years, less than 3.5%. When the NDP 2030 says we ought to be growing at 5.4% on the higher end, just to be able to absorb the 180,000 young graduates that get onto the job market, often with inappropriate skills, would have banked a trillion South African rands. So if you do the math, there's 58.78 million South Africans of us, 51% of them are female. If you divide 59 million, you round it up, by what South African Revenue Service has been collecting for the last 10 years, which is about 1.4 trillion South African rands, there's no reason why any one of us should go to bed hungry. But the stats actually tell us something different. Only 16 million of us are gainfully employed. 18 million are on some sort of social security. 7.2 million only are registered for PAYE. 3.2 million are responsible for more than 80% of what we collect. The total number of people that earn 1.5 million and above is only 105,000.
So on the issue of paying bonuses just for transformation, I don't think that's necessarily the right thing to do. I do know that in the past the focus was so much about achieving your short-term objectives, but I think it's probably holding your short-term and long-term objectives in like a creative tension. Therefore, you do want your people to achieve, obviously, the objectives for this next year and for the year thereafter in order to be able to say, well, we have achieved at least what our business is about. But it's also about creating a mindset with your people whereby you want them to think about the future, because sustainability for the organization is about where you will continue to achieve those objectives, maybe in different contexts, because you will be thinking about it differently in future. But because you have a transformation agenda within your organization, you help people to think, to say, new challenges will emerge for the organization, many of which we don't even know. Therefore, what we're trying to build is a transformation mindset for our people to say, you need to, if you're going to be successful, upskill yourself continuously, see the new trends and challenges emerging around us, see where the new competitors are, see what are the problems about our practices, policies, and the ways of doing things within the organization. So as we build a mindset like that for people, we are saying to them, yes, it is about achieving our objectives for this next year, but we want you to be able to think continuously about the challenges as they emerge into the future. Therefore, I do believe that it is necessary, over and above paying bonuses for your short-term objectives, you should incentivize your people also about achieving the objectives of the future. Just by the way, that transformation is going to take time, because even though we do make, say, a major jump and shift to say, we're not going to operate like this today any longer, we're going to operate in the new way. We take into account the new challenges, the new things that are emerging, and therefore we want to operate in that new space. We are saying that that will take time, and you want to build a mindset with your people that continuously build on that into the future and never waver from that path. That is why I do believe it is important to pay people an incentive for the transformation, in addition to paying them for your short-term objectives.
Thank you very much, Doc. I think that is enough.
Yeah. Security cues, so that our people can have their self-respect, their self-worth. Business must lead on ensuring that we take this notion of education much more seriously to grow our own timber, We are the only country in Africa that became free from our colonial masters, and we did not intentionally improve the quality of our education. 1957's Ghana of Kwame Nkrumah, 10 years into democracy, they were boasting of 80% literacy rate. Even the breadbasket of the continent, Zimbabwe, 12 million people, 6 of them outside of Zimbabwe, shared between South Africa and just Botswana, today boast of a 94% literacy rate. What do you have to boast of? The last FAIR study says 80% of our grade 4s cannot read with comprehension. Somehow we have gotten into our psyche to have a strategic conversation that is 30%, it's an acceptable pass mark. Imagine going to a doctor and you wonder which 50% does this one know. So that's what prompted me to write a book, Lift As You Rise. Lift As You Rise, it's an African adage. It needs no explanation. Because everybody in any language you get it. It says you don't have to wait until you are the CEO, the MD, or the chairman before you extend a hand and you lift another human being. It says you don't have to wait until you're in the corner office, C-suite, before you lift others. It pays homage to the 70s black teachers' exodus when they were protesting against Bantu education because they genuinely cared about the education of an African child. Coined a phrase that said, each one, teach one. It's the one that implores our politicians to say, the best amongst us lead with the heart of a servant. That servant leadership. It's not a leader with many servants. It says to business, you cannot continue to be an island of prosperity in a sea of poverty, because when business does well, society generally does well. Lift As You Rise says there is no exercise that's more potent for the heart than extending a hand down and lifting another human being as you rise. That nature is a wonderful metaphor for business. That nothing that nature does for itself. This notion of being other, not self-centered. That is why rivers do not drink their own water. Trees don't eat their own fruit. The sun does not shine because it needs the vitamin D. And flowers do not give off this fragrance because they themselves want to smell like Fontainebleau. You know, when one steadily burns the midnight oil, one gains access to the domain of knowledge and wisdom, the world of meaning, the world that cannot be conquered without a persistent crusade. You've been extremely generous with your time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I wonder, can you just give me some of your time very, very quickly, Mr. Mohali? Would you, a question to you, could you just come up 2 seconds? Here we go. Hello. Quick one. Maurice Manganyi. Mr. Mohali, would you consider standing for the position of president should the Electoral Act be amended to allow individuals to contest national elections?
You know, when Mandela became free on the 27th of April 1994 and gave us the freedom to be ourselves, there were 109 pieces of legislation. One of them was Group Arrest Act. Even if you had money, you couldn't buy a house in town. The other one was called the Immorality Act. If you dare kiss a white woman, you went to jail. Today, Mandela has liberated us. We intermarry, we live wherever we want. But also the most important thing, he gave us choice. When I was young and I grew up, my father would open the curtains and say, Bonang, you have to go to school, because if you don't, you look like those guys at the back of a coal truck. The only option we had was to go to school, look for a job, and hope to be middle class for the rest of your life. Today, you can be one of the 400 MPs. You can start your own consultancy. You can choose to be a BE partner. The options are numerous. That's what being free is about. At a personal level, I hate politics with a passion, because the current politicians in 25 glorious years have demonstrated beyond any shadow of doubt that They are only concerned about eating, bribery, stealing, and cheating. We saw the most amazing industrial scale of state capture. But also, on the other hand, nature does not allow a vacuum. The rest of the continent has demonstrated that the good guys run away from politics and the bad guys occupy the space. The looting continues. At some stage, the best amongst us need to roll our sleeves and jump in and see whether you cannot help. Unfortunately, that does not include me. I'm a business person through and through, and I'm absolutely turned on by business.
So the answer is no.
That's no.
One more. How do we ensure as individuals a sincere contribution towards pulling the country out of the 9 wasted years?
At a personal level, this happened on our watch. It happened with our complicity. We were taught that all that is needed for evil to thrive is for good people to do nothing. Leadership depends on 3 things. Some sort of a compelling vision, courage, and integrity. Courage to speak truth to power. Courage of your convictions, irrespective of consequences. We saw Jacob Gedleyihlekisa Zuma being rotten to the core in exile. He came back, we gave him an opportunity to be MEC of Economic Affairs in KwaZulu-Natal. He continued stealing. He came into national cabinet as a deputy president to Thabo Mbeki and was fired by President Thabo Mbeki for soliciting bribes with Jabir Sheikh. And we went out and said, you are the one that we want to lead us. We did it. And he was going to go on and survive 12 motions of no confidence by this ANC-led government. 12. So it couldn't have happened just with him alone. So today, as we bemoan the fact that we are where we are now and worse off than most African countries, when we were in those queues on the 27th of April, 1994, at that moment, very moment, Rwanda was going through the most painful genocide. 800,000 Tutsis in 90 days, 1 million in 100 days killed. But in just 20 years, when you go to Kigali, they've got free Wi-Fi on buses. Out of the 10 fastest growing economies in the world, 7 of them are in Africa. Rwanda is one of them. And they didn't have to even think. Paul Kagame went to Lee Kuan Yew in Singapore and said, how did you do it? Give me the framework as it is, including personally leading the cleaning up of the country Rwanda, of a small base. Because there's something magical about human psyche. When you are in clean surroundings that you yourself have cleaned up, you then genuinely believe that you can. South Africa, we have been developing plans coming out of every orifice. RDP, 3 years later. When you ask young people today what's an RDP, they think it's a house. They forget that it was the best plan we had. Best, not because it was comprehensive. It was best because business, labor, and government signed off on it. In 3.5 years, we changed to gear. And then it was as GISA. From then on, it became an alphabet soup. Our problem is in doing, in executing. South Africa's problem has nothing to do with the availability of resources, but everything to do with the execution. It was General George Patton who said, great wars are won by good execution, not great plans. Good execution will save even a mediocre plan.
Just no questions, just a few statements from the audience engagement. You are a blessing to South Africa with your wisdom. You need to share this with the very politicians to correct our country. Stay vocal, be vocal. Awesome, uplifting passion and immense love for our country and its people. Powerful, thought-provoking, inspiring, and very profound. Wow, thank you, Mr. Mohale. And there was one here which I wanted to, yeah, here we go. From Nancy, thank you, sir. You can run South Africa. Thank you very much, Mr. Mohale. And just a small gift from IPM to you for your time. We hope that you catch your flight or your drive to Joburg and go safe. Thank you so much. One more round of applause. Ladies and gentlemen, we are going to just, before we go and get something, is it still fine at the back there? Do you? Yes. When we come back, I'm gonna give away this prize. It's a juicer. Yeah, it's a Russell's Hobbs juicer. We're gonna give away a prize when you come back. Please be in the room to get the prize. You cannot be out of the room because we are gonna keep drawing till someone is in the room. So it's a juicer from Russell Hobbs from 21st century. Thank you. Quick break. We'll come back and we'll finish off. Thank you. Mr. DJ, some nice music, not too loud.